advice. He's establishing it here. All the work of not just the clergy, because Bishop Brossman, previous bishop, used to say we had a clergy shortage before it was fashionable, and but so many lay people really contributed to the founding of the Catholic Church here in North Carolina. So we're very grateful and great that you can be here. This is our new parish center. It's not so new anymore. It's coming up on 1 year old. So we hope it doesn't do anything in the terrible twos. But it's great to have you here and for this day, because certainly we need to do everything possible for every person to so that you can have the dignity of work and be able to contribute those talents that the Lord has uniquely given to everybody for some definite purpose. That's a great prayer. If you have an opportunity to look it up, there's a prayer that was written by St. John Henry Newman, who was a great convert to Catholicism. He was a professor at Oxford and became Catholic, and great theologian. And he has a beautiful prayer. He says, God has created all of us for some definite purpose. So a good prayer to pray as you're starting out on some new endeavor and trying to see, where's the Lord want me to be? And that's the fundamental question for all of us. And no matter if it's we're seeking new employment, or we have a decision to make regarding some change and how we have our focus, and so where does the Lord want me in this? How may I be an instrument of His grace and mercy? And that's what all of us are called to be as Christians. So anyway, so it's great to have you here, and blessings on your day today, and enjoy. And anything else I need?
No, thank you. I just want to say that piece of work that Mathew referred to is an Amazon book called Community: How to Find and Maintain Employment, Practical and Spiritual Approach to all this. And you all are going to get a free copy of that. Woo! And it's to say, Paul and I struggle with this. We neither one of us went to seminary, not theologians. And thank God you helped us with all the speech.
It's experience of fruit. That is the ultimate. Anyway, well, listen again. So welcome and great to have you here, and blessings on your day.
We have keynotes. We have a keynote, and we have presentations by some folks, and then we also have 2 different PMs. So the idea is we're going to hear from Sebastian first. Okay, I'm going to bring him up very quickly here, and he is Director of Global Solutions and Consulting at Oracle, and he's going to talk about his take on employment, his take on, hopefully hear a little bit about maybe some good news about how AI is not going to take over. Anything else you would like to add? Paul, that would be followed by myself and Paul. We're going to do a 30-minute sprint on the book, okay? And then Mark's going to contribute to that too. And then Suzanne Carter, is Suzanne here? I don't know if she's here or not, but if she is, she's going to do 30 minutes. I think she's going to arrive a little bit later. Here are some of those folks we have on the panel. We also have some other panelists in addition to Alf and Norma. Are you here? Norma's here, and Deb is here.
Yep.
Right. I'm putting you in the panel. You didn't know it, but
Well, that comes I'm Matt Sebastian, director for a unit called Global Solutions Centers. It's part of Oracle's revenue operations team, and we're a global unit. I've been there for about 15 years between 2 stints. So I started my career with Oracle Consulting, very hands-on, doing technical work, technology work, very focused on customers' technical problems. And I've probably been to all over the country except for maybe 4 states, been widely traveled, but my focus was just fixing client problems and looking at the technical issues and the specs and get out of there, right? Get on to my next assignment. This was years ago when I was very young. I could take the travel, I could take all kinds of different food. And I enjoyed meeting people. enjoyed seeing places, looking at different customers. But what I failed to realize was customers had IT. IT is an enabler, right? It's a key enabler, but that's not the core business. Many industries. It's either it's banking or retail or healthcare. That is the core business. IT is an important enabler, right? It took me a while to realize that I was in my own little silo, in my own world, thinking that I was Superman doing all this stuff. And when I walked into a client side, I mean, everybody said, "Oh, Oracle's here." It's just Matt here, right? But Oracle's here, right? And sometimes it'll be frustrated clients as well. People taking out their, all their troubles with Oracle on me, right? And asking me to get the things fixed. But one of the things I did miss was I failed to understand what the industry looked like. What were some of their challenges? What was keeping them from running and keeping the lights on, if you will, right? What was keeping them away from their core financial revenues? And so all of these gaps led me to Georgetown. I've lived in DC for more than 20 years and been here for about 7 years now. I was very blessed to meet Dana. First off, I'm very blessed to be here, very privileged to be here amongst all you good Catholics. Trying to be a good Catholic as well. So anyway, digress. So Georgetown did me a world of good. I met a lot of good people there, C-level execs, line of business VPs. They threw industry terms at me like crazy. Some of these went above my head because I was just an IT guy, right? But I did want to learn, and I met these wonderful gentlemen who are heading corporate business units. Like one of them is chairman of the National Retail Federation, and I won't take names, but we had some very important guys in our cohort, and I learned a lot from them. Right, I was trying to keep my head above water. The MBA curriculum itself was tough, but getting all these industry terms in my head was even tougher, right? Through ratios, financial ratios, and it was kind of hard to join group discussions and contribute meaningfully because some of these terms were way above, right? But I stayed on, I hung on, and I learned a lot. I'll be honest, I learned a lot during those 2 years. And so all of that led me to take a global program management role with a company called Target, which you all know, right? It's my favorite retailer. I moved from DC to Minneapolis. It was a bold move. I took my calculated risk, moved to Minneapolis, stayed near Nicollet Mall for about 2.5 years, running global Scrum teams, right? So the idea of global Scrum teams was doing a software development round the clock, and we had Accenture as our partner, and we set up different business units. One, of course, Minneapolis was the headquarters, but then we went on to a ODC, as they call it, an offshore development center in Latin America, in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Another one in Bangalore, India. And so with my degree, the specialization was in international business. I minored in finance. I hope you all can understand me at the back or give me at the back, right? So anyway, I wanted to put my degree to good use, and I had a pleasure of meeting people. I can get along with almost any people around the world. I can say that now, but not a few years ago, right? So I took this calculated risk, went out, put myself out there, and started running this global Scrum team. It was a $28 million portfolio that I had to run, and had program managers and senior project managers reporting to me. And this was kind of like learning by the fire hose, if you will, right? And the financial was on one side, but technical delivery was on the other side. Understanding different cultures, when they say yes, it doesn't really mean yes in some cultures. Just means, yeah, I'll do what please you, but let me get back to you on my own terms or my own time, right? The yes doesn't always mean the yes as on time as it means here in the US, right? So it took me a while to realize that there are different nuances, different cultures, and people are good people generally, but there's also areas where you could optimize some of these operations. So I did that for about 2.5 years, got burnt out, came back to DC, did a little consulting stint with the DC federal and state and local clients. I had some friends, ex-Oracle, who were there, and I was no longer with Oracle. So walking into a client site was a little challenging because they wouldn't say Oracle's here. They said, yeah, yet another consultant's here, right? So I wasn't quite used to that. So the consulting stint taught me a lot in terms of how I smartly weave my message. How do I keep in trends with the current technologies and such? And a lot of my talk today will be around modern trends. How do you keep yourself abreast on technology or just general trends in the industry. Okay, so that's it about me. Rough background. I think I talked to you about my career journey. So industry trends, right? What are companies looking to do? A, they want to reduce risk. They want to mitigate their complexities, if you will, but they also want to accelerate innovation. They want to be on the leading edge of innovation, right? Now that's a fine line. It's a delicate balance. You want to reduce risk, but you're putting your hands into something brand new, right? So where's the fine line there? You got to balance it out, right? And then reduce complexity and lower total cost of ownership. That's the third big one, right? So this is what companies are looking to do today. They want to optimize, they want to modernize, they want to move away from the big data centers onto cloud data centers, pay like subscription billing, pay as you go. They don't want to incur a huge upfront capex cost. So a lot of variables out there, right? So there's an interesting insight by this firm called Global Data Insight Survey. They say 79% of data and AI leaders are executing a formal data strategy to guide IT infrastructure investments. 79% of companies are looking to do something meaningful with their data and turn it into an AI insight. Okay, that's a huge number, right? Everybody wants to jump on the AI bandwagon. They don't know what they're doing, but they want to get it. That's big on, right? But a few of them are very smart. I deal with some very smart banks. They know exactly what they want to do. They know how they want to utilize the global trend, the global economic ratios or indexes, and apply it to the local business, how to adjust for inflationary trends. They want to do a lot of that. So there's a lot of meaningful work going on, but there's also a lot that who want to get on the AI bandwagon and just say, hey, we're AI enabled. Okay. So that's happening there as well. So in terms of market trends itself, right? We talked about reduced risk. So in this sense, modernization is a big one. People are exiting data centers. When I say people, it's companies, large corporations are exiting data centers. They want a data center exit strategy. Okay, they want to modernize. I don't want to pick on any one industry, but insurance comes to mind as one that has a lot of mainframe systems, legacy systems. Okay, so people want the richness of mainframe data because that's what they've been using for several decades, right? But they want to actually turn on AI insights or new advanced analytic insights on that data to look for trending, to look for predictive insights and things like that. So the richness of data on one side and the modern benefits of the cloud on the other side. And of course, the financial incentive is there when you go on the other side to the cloud side, because you incur only OpEx costs. You don't necessarily incur those CapEx costs, right? The initial CapEx costs. And the other big one is acceleration of innovation. So AI is here to stay, and you'll see more about AI. But we've got traditional machine learning that's been around for quite some time. Manufacturing companies, supply chain, they all use machine learning, right? They use data from their factories or production units to make meaningful insights on defect rates, for instance, right? What in the past, this was my defect rate. How can I lower that? And where am I hitting those snags that cause me to have defective product units, right? So that's been around for quite some time, machine learning. Toyota comes to mind as one that tries to, ruthlessly diminish those defect rates to give, extremely fault-tolerant products, if you will. Even to the cars, they're very quick to spot on any recalls, as you probably, I don't know. We've got several good car makers, BMW, and some American cars too. A lot of so no offense, but the Germans outdo us on the cars. Let me say that, right? And the Japanese outdo us on the cost efficiency. Just being honest. Embedded AI is here. Embedded AI is here in a big form because now everybody wants to embed AI in their software products, in their hardware products, right? So they want to have AI insights with all their nitty-gritty products and AI enable everything. You talk about HR recruiting. I heard somebody recruiting, Amber, was that you? Yeah. So yeah, recruiting uses AI, chatbots, right? They're asking AI, should I hire this candidate? Oh, is he a good fit? I'm just, chatbots are here to stay, right? So there's a lot of things AI can do, but ultimately human intelligence prevails and proceeds, okay? Analytics, that's a big one. Of course, Gen AI. I forgot to mention Gen AI. Gen AI is when you ask AI questions, and based on its data, it gives you a meaningful answer. So it's almost like talking to a human. If you talk to Alexa, if you talk to Siri, they're all powered by AI, and they're only getting better. Google's Bart is another one. Analytics is a big one, right? Now here, globalization is a big one in accelerating innovation. Globalization meaning, we talk about the banks example, right? Incorporating global indexes, inflationary trends into local cash ratios, cash flow ratios, if you will, for local banks' performance, right? So a lot of that's happening. People want to, space research is another one where they're taking some shared elements of research that's been done globally, but NASA takes it, or any ESA, European Space Agency takes it and uses it for their local space research and optimize what their outcomes are based on what's available globally. A lot of intellectual property is still very local, but there's also a lot of sharing going on between big entities, okay? All right, next. Reduce complexity and lower total cost of ownership. So multi-cloud is another big trend that's happening, multi-cloud. When I say that, Amazon's now talking to Oracle. Oracle's talking to GCP, Google Cloud Platform. They're all there, right? And customers now have a choice. They can go best of breed cloud providers and optimize costs, obviously, right? They're going best of breed. There's certain silos. For example, I don't know if anybody's dealt with Salesforce. Anybody in the room dealt with Salesforce? There you go. Okay, that's by far the most common for CRM, right? Customer relationship management. A lot of field sales people use this. But at the back end, they still prefer to have an Oracle database sometimes. A lot of times, right? The CEO of Salesforce was ex-Oracle as well. And NetSuite is another one that does ERP financials and P&Ls and stuff like that. Again, that uses an Oracle database. So it's not uncommon for different cloud providers to leverage each other these days. But there's a lot of underpinning networking and things like that. But to the end customer, for them, it's reducing complexity, optimizing the total cost of ownership, and getting best of breed performance from these unique cloud providers. No longer are you locked in with one vendor when it comes to software products. And that could be your entire stack, right? From your sales, from your CRM, from your supply chain, from your financials, manufacturing, all of those end units, all the way to HR and recruiting and your marketing divisions. They're all now integrated, but it could be no longer one vendor. It could be different siloed CSPs or cloud service providers. Okay. Now, how do you keep up with these market trends? I threw a lot at you guys. How do you keep up, right? It's a lot of learning. Even for us at Oracle, it's just the learning never stops, right? So AI automation is here to stay. I'll tell you that much. It's only on the rise. But don't be alarmed, because AI will be pervasive in optimizing and automating operational jobs, right? AI works on data in the underpinning that is rich in trends. So if you got rich trend data, meaningful in a contextual manner, that's when AI works the best. If you remove the context, if you remove the legacy of the data or the richness of the data, AI is faulty. For lack of better words, AI doesn't perform well, right? So you got to keep that in mind. Is the data that you're looking at, is it rich in history? Does it have that meaningful trend? Does it have that context for you to perform your inferences, right? Of course, at the end of the day, you want to infer from AI. I mean, to get AI enabled is easy, but meaningful inference, that's tough, right? How do you make sense out of all of this, what AI is throwing at you? How do you know it's real, right? How do you know it's real? So that's where I would say I have a little tagline in there. You'll wait for it. The key is to upskill and develop customer-centric consultative skills. That never goes away. You make a customer your trusted advisor. Somebody agreed with me. Thanks, Tom.
Yes.
Yeah, you make your customer your best friend. You're the trusted advisor on how to infer these meanings. Show them where they can still optimize. They may have the best of AI in the world, but they may be missing something. They may be missing to incorporate those global trends. They may be in a silo with their data research, right? So that's where consultative skills and customer-centric advisory skills come into play, right? That's here to stay. And sometimes let's not try to beat AI in what it's good at, like mining trends. Billions of records, it can do that in a few minutes or few. Nowadays, with supercomputing and different chip manufacturers, it actually helps you do things so fast. So there's no way to beat some of what AI is throwing at you. But intelligence context does matter, right? That's where the human intelligence prevails or precedes. Knowing how to apply AI inference and learning and how to apply these models so customers can derive meaningful benefits, right? Knowing what model to apply when. You could have AI with 300 plus models, but what model do you apply to your specific use case, right? To derive meaningful insights. I know I'm getting a little technical because modeling and they use a language called R, or another language is called Python. And you're like, what the heck is he talking about? Python? I thought there was a snake, right? But those are key languages that are used in AI. Okay, R is a big one. For those of you who have a SaaS background, who have worked with SaaS, not software as a service, but the company SaaS, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Statistical analysis, modeling, scenario modeling, plan A, plan B, decision tree modeling. So for all of that, you need to know what are the right models to pick. You could have AI, but you could be using the wrong model. The customer could be using the wrong model, okay? So knowing how to apply this AI inferences, learning how to apply models so customers can benefit. Multi-cloud trends are on the rise, and it's now very common for applications to talk to each other in a cross-cloud, cross-product, cross-platform, cross-region areas, okay? Even cross-region areas. Customers having cloud here could be talking to customers in Sao Paulo, Brazil, having cloud deployments there. So networking has gotten so advanced that cross-cloud connectivity and exchange of information is now happening at the speed of business, okay? So my taglines here, human intelligence will, however, always precede AI because human intelligence is built on God-given moral conscience. And we'll get to that in a minute, right? I'll talk to you about some of my own experiences. Employment and hiring trends. So companies assess your capacity to stay at the edge of innovation. This is what I'm finding out in the field. This is ground truth because I hire as well. And I've worked a lot with HR back at Oracle, and I've seen a lot of first-hand candidates. And sometimes they're missing the edge of innovation. They're in their own little space happily, but they're missing out on the innovation that's going around them. Companies are moving at the speed of business, right? If you talk to banks, consumer banks, their customers are asking them, "Hey, don't you have this? Don't you have that? I'm a premium customer. What kind of service are you giving?" Right? So they're forced to go in that modernization direction, right? And so seek constant learning. If you're a candidate looking out for a job, seek constant learning. Companies are looking for candidates who are nimble and flexible, right? I can't no longer say, "Hey, I'm just gonna do this X and Y because I'm really good at this." Okay, you can say that, but can you also adapt and say, "Well, I can do A and B given some time, and I've already done some readings around it, and I'm flexible," right? Solve for industry challenges. Know when to apply innovation. Sometimes it's also I've seen candidates who come in and say, "Well, and not to be judgmental, right? I know X and Y and Z, but that's not what I'm asking for in my job profile. I only want A, B, and C. I'm happy you know X, Y, and Z, which is really advanced. But how do I make sense of how I can apply your learnings to my business, my immediate business, right? As a manager, hiring manager, I'm looking at that. I want to get my problems resolved. I'm answerable to my execs for counting on me for revenues and my business unit performance. So I need to know what's going on with your skills that as it relates to the job profile. And I'm super happy that you know X, Y, and Z as well, because I could use that later down the line. Okay. So perform a SWOT on yourself, analyze your strengths, but also analyze your weaknesses. And sometimes it helps to take step interviews. If you got a top-notch company that you're aiming for, you could take a step interview with a company that's almost similar, but it's not really your first choice, right? And learn from that. Ask the people who are interviewing you, "Hey, give me an honest feedback. How did I do? I want to hear my gaps as well," right? Knowing your unknowns is probably the greatest thing you can do to help yourself. And it sounds very hard. It sounds harsh, actually. But there are people who give good constructive feedback. I would say listen. and address those gaps, right? Put yourself out there, volunteer on federal, state, and local nonprofits. I used to do this a lot in DC, between jobs, between contracts, especially when I was running my own consulting. I was not employed 100% of the time. I did have 8 people working for me in my own little boutique consulting, but I was personally not employed all the time. So I would put myself out there, do things with, like, for instance, National Park Service had Department of Interior has a few jobs where they wouldn't pay. And I wanted the experience because it was another technology. So I did it, right? I advised friends who did it. And my friends got into jobs because this experience is counted as real experience, right? If DHHS, another employer, I mean, I don't mean to take names, but these are entities who ask for volunteer employees. They have requirements all the time, right? Department of Human Health Services. Put yourself out there, right? There's a delicate trade-off between your job and your career. If you find that you're not learning much in your current job, the job puts bread and butter on the table. If you find that you're not learning much in your current job, it's time to move on. It's time to do good for your career. That's my sincere advice. Probably I'm nobody to advise anybody, but this is my experience. It's rather good to move on than to get frustrated and then keep doing mundane things and then let your brain rust. I've been there too. Some of my cycles have been there. Wonder what I'm doing here. Just my honest feedback. Are you looking to be an industry vertical expert or a subject matter expert? Or do you want to be somebody who has horizontal breadth? That's a difficult question, isn't it? Yeah, my take on that, you got to be both. You got to be both. No excuses, right? You got to have your industry vertical experience. Let's say, can I pick on this? Me? Yeah. Go for it. What's your name? Jacob. Jacob. Let's say Jacob's really good in banking and electronics. 2 industries that he's really done well, right? But he's being called to a retail industry to do work in retail IT, right? So he's got his core skills, but he also knows enough about retail because he's got an electronics background. He's specialist in electronics retail, right? So Jacob goes there, he says, hey, these are my core 2 industries, but I know a lot about your industry. I know your pain points. I know exactly what this job looks like. And I know who you are because you put this out there about yourself on LinkedIn. I did my research. I went through your company's E10K reports. I know where you stand on your stock. I know where you're bleeding. I know where you're, making revenues, making profits, right? I'm going a little advanced into my MBA skills, but pardon me, but this is research that companies love to do, right? You know all about them before you start them. And you're making the conversation so meaningful. And sometimes it helps ask leading questions to the interviewer, right? Ask them about their industry and they'll open up. If it's a yes or no answer, you're not going to get much, but ask leading questions that will have them open up. And then you tailor your responses accordingly. Because you've got some learnings there that are rich, although you're not a subject matter expert in that field. You know enough horizontally, breadth-wise, that you can answer them meaningfully based on what they told you, right? All right, I think I've beaten this to death. All right. How has faith helped my overall growth? This is my last part, right? So, I found myself as I was climbing corporate ladder years ago. I was going away from my faith. I was still focused on making it big, and then something happened in my life. My dad passed away 2006. My daughter fell sick. She was only 15 months old. She felt sick, really sick to the point where she was dying, right? So I actually went and prayed, sincerely in front of the Blessed Sacrament after many years. And I actually had a priest tell me that your daughter will be saved, but you'll be changed in the process, right? It was almost prophetic what this priest told me. And he was a Vincentian priest who was running around the world doing evangelization, right? So my daughter was miraculously saved, and I developed a heart for helping people. I tried to change myself. It took many years, right? And sacraments really were a big help for me. Going to Sunday Mass was barely a thing for me. Like I would consistently be late, but then I started going to Sunday Mass, the point where I started going to daily Mass as well, right? So the sacraments helped form my moral conscience a day at a time, right? I was thinking more clearly. I could get to understand scripture because till then I could read every other book, complex technical books, but I would never understand scripture, right? Just telling you from my own standpoint. But when I started reading scripture after turning to the Lord, it made a whole new meaning for me, right? Every word hit me. And I was convicted. But going on, Holy Hour of Adoration and Confessions has helped me. This is my time to dialogue with God, right? All my challenges. To just tell him, laid out there as a friend, my best friend, right? With my dad, I also lost my best friend. So it was Jesus, after that, in the Holy Hour, who helped me and navigate my life's challenges, right? So I felt called and inspired to evangelize after this priest had told me. And then I said, well, I got to evangelize both with words and actions. Some people say, don't use words, use them when necessary. No. Use words when needed, right? Be ready to give a reason for your faith. Because there's the world out there will beat you otherwise. I mean, they'll just put your faith out there to nothing, right? I get mocked for being a Catholic. I'm being perfectly honest, but be ready to give a charitable answer with a smile and kindness. And know that the other person doesn't know where you're coming from, doesn't have that sacramental grounding. Just have mercy on the person who's taunting you or mocking you for being Catholic. Even when I wear my Catholic identity, I get mocked for it, but that's okay, right? That's okay. Soup kitchens are a big way to meet people, help them, just not just with food or money, but have a compassion for them. Just share a smile with them, share your joy with them. I think those are things that really drive me, motivate me at this point in my life. I run an evangelization ministry at St. Thomas More in Chapel Hill. I think there's one or two people from St. Thomas More here. Yeah, there you go, Bruce. Thank you. Partnered with Evangelical Catholic for bringing their regional program to form lay Catholic leaders. So our goal is to have this 12-week program through this ministry that's based out of Madison, Wisconsin, and help them ground their leadership in scripture, in the catechism, through the teaching of saints, and then also to help them in turn form small groups of non-Catholics who they can bring in, talk about Catholicism, or talk about just general things like the problem of evil, right? Why, if God is omnipotent, if he's omnipresent, why is that evil? Right? That's a lot of questions we get from people of other faiths. So bring the good news to non-Catholics, even within corporate circles. We teach leaders how to do that. How do you gently bring it up? It's a taboo topic. You could get fired for it if you don't do it right. Right? So how do you do that in a gentle fashion, right? And eventually extend an invite to non-Catholics to check out our parish RCA program. So that's where this is all leading to. So if you want information about it, feel free to get in touch with me afterwards. So my net, when I started doing works of Christ, he miraculously intervened in all aspects of my life. And I'll leave you with guys with that thought. Right? That's my contact right there.
Good work and meaningful careers are pursuits that transcend boundaries of faith and culture. Whether you draw inspiration from the Bible, the Torah, or other sacred texts and traditions, we can all agree that work is not just about earning a living, it's about contributing to the well-being of others and fulfilling our unique purpose in the world. For example, in the Jewish tradition, the concept of tikkun olam, repairing the world, reminds us that our efforts, whether big or small, have the power to create positive change. Similarly, in the Catholic tradition, work is seen as a means of serving others, reflecting God's goodness. These ideas unite us in a common goal to use our talents to leave the world a better place than where we found it. So whether you're Catholic or Jewish or in between or a seeker, you are welcome here. And you are welcome in this book, even though there is a Catholic theme. The themes cover a lot of people. And just like when you're talking to people who have a lot of questions that are not Catholic, that kindness, we want you to feel that from the stage here, from all the people on the leadership team, to Paul, to Dana, and all the people that help with the book. That's how we want you to feel. So with with me, you can expect non sequitur references to movies and other things. And with Martin, as if we ever run out of content, push a button, and Martin will be there. Within seconds. All right, I just wanted to do one last reference before I bring these guys up. Is in it a little bit of an Irish background. Who has a little bit of an Irish background? In order to find his equal, an Irishman is forced to talk to God. Do not strike me down.
Say that again, please.
In order to find his equal, an Irishman is forced to talk to God. It's coming. It's coming. Stephen from Braveheart.
We need to send him a smart careering approach to job hunting and the pitfalls of spray and pray applications. What do we mean by that? Okay. So pray, okay, but spray, what does spray mean? What do we see? Most people do. Now, some career pro people in here that brothers talk a lot about this, so this is not something new for you. There'll be a couple of new things, but the basic philosophy is there. Spraying is, and if you think about your job in looking for new work, you're kind of doing sales and marketing, right? And spray is like just that, just like something. It's like I blast out emails, I spray out resumes onto LinkedIn posts that may or may not be real jobs. I inundate with my friends, relatives, colleagues with, would you please review my resume? I send resumes to recruiters who may not even specialize in what I do. That's spray, like this. So what we emphasize in the book, well, thank you, you got the full screen. What we emphasize in the book is more of a narrow, what we call narrow casting approach, okay? And why do we do that? All right, because there's this thing called the hidden job market. It sounds like a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy. All right, it's just that some companies don't post jobs. And some companies, and the HR people in the room know this, sometimes you got to post them because of EEOC requirements. You already have a candidate internally. It's kind of slated for that job. All right, there's lots of reasons. Small and mid-sized companies sometimes don't even post at all. Large companies tend to post more. But 70 to 80% of jobs are found through referrals and recommendation because people like to hire people that have been referred to them. That's their preference. That's their go-to. Spray and pray and recruiters, maybe 20%. Okay. Now, Paul, what is that famous expression we talk about? Hit submit. Tell them about hit submit.
Well, hit submit, or what's the definition of insanity?
Same thing over and over.
Yeah, you need to remember that. And I went through it. I don't know how many people are in job transition, but when I got laid off from Nortel, I remember I was applying everywhere. I didn't even know exactly what I wanted, but I was applying everywhere. So you need to, and we'll talk more about how important it is to network. Congratulate yourself for being here. You got out of bed, you got out. You know, you got to get out. But the hit submit, you know, it's the digital divide. Face to face, meet people, get out. You know, hit submit won't get you anywhere. You got to network.
Hit submit meaning boom, 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 along, right? Job application, got the job application. The data is it produces about jobs in about 5% of the cases. Now, in some cases, like in these folks will attest, John and Brian and Amber, some cases like if I'm an accountant, 3 years experience, you know, kind of thing with a good background, yeah, you can probably float your resume out there and you're going to get snapped up because there's such a shortage of accountants. So for a lot of jobs, that's not the case, especially for mid-level professionals where you get, you know, acute career changers. You're a career changer and you just send in an application. That's a tough road to hoe. But if you can get out and network and do the things that we're going to talk about in more detail here, you'll have better chances. But the data is about 5% of jobs that feel that way. Okay. And people say, well, what about AI? Isn't that helping me as a candidate? AI with the job application process has done a pretty big benefit to the HR and the recruiting folks. And maybe you can chime in here. You get more resumes, okay? You get more applications. But from a candidate standpoint, you get more competition, right? So I don't know what the recent data is with AI, but I'm guessing it hasn't moved into much. Maybe it's even gotten worse with AI in terms of you being seen and your document being picked out for an interview, okay? So just keep that. So what do we talk about? Relationship building. We're talking about quality and quantity of your connections. And we're going to get into this, and Martin is extraordinarily good at this. It's seeking win-win situation in your networking. Martin.
Yeah, the key of it is marketing yourself. It can be very difficult. And the way I describe it is you got to pretend that you're talking about someone else in your mind so that you can get out of your own way. One of the humorous stories I pick is when I studied the history of David Bowie. He said I was an extreme introvert, but I stepped into roles so I could be able to get on stage. It's the ROI of you. And then remember, marketing today is education and connecting. So what does that mean? It means you're going to be thinking of yourself as a product. What's a unique offering? When you're discouraged and down, you might have to talk to some friends that have known you for a while and go, what do you see as my best resource? Or someone you used to work with. This is the biggest hit to the ego you could possibly have, is job hunting. And you've got to pick up this idea, this is the thing I'm selling. I've got to be falling in love with it to sell. And I don't mean falling in love like an ego. I mean like, imagine you got some new gizmo and you can hardly stop telling your friends about it. Why? You want to talk about the benefits that give it. You don't just say, I got a new phone. I go, this lets me text my grandkids now that I could never before. So thinking of this, we call it the ROI of you. What is that? What is that unique offering? Practice with people that are less important. Now, I don't mean they're less important. It's a conversation. And also, the other thing is everyone says networking. No one says, what does that look like? You go to these things, you're uncomfortable, you don't know what to do. Have something to talk about. We were just talking about some gardening, weren't we? You were doing? It's okay to start with something you're doing. So, I just got finished gardening today, and I think I didn't kill everything. It's okay to start with a little bit of you to get a seed. Otherwise, it looks like some type of FBI investigation. So where are you from? What's your root? How old are you? How many kids do you have? So you've got to learn to talk about the weather. I've coached so many engineers where I go, you have to talk about what stuff seems unimportant to you to build enough unconscious rapport with another Homo sapien so they'll trust you. And this, so I really have compassion. Some of the brightest people I know have the most difficult time talking about things that let other people build rapport with them. So this is one of the fundamental principles in the book and the ideas that I work with. Getting the ROI of you, then leading with education, then remember, you always have something to offer. Usually when you're unemployed, you go, oh my gosh, I'm limited in funds, I have nothing to offer. Yes, you do. You have your lifetime experience, you have your knowledge, you have information. You know, I might talk to you and I'm going, yeah, I've got a plumbing issue I need to resolve. You go, I got a great plumber. And you might be a software engineer. So realize, start calculating, wait a second, what's the collective value? I love for people redoing your LinkedIn. If your LinkedIn looks like a resume, that's a train wreck. If it's not compelling, and I want to read it because there are great stories throughout your history. The other thing is, what's the story that occurred? What's the value I gave to the business in that part of my life? If you sold hot dogs and now you're an AI technician, what'd you learn selling hot dogs that helps in that career you're in? So I just want to give a few of these things, but it's the ROI of you. Remember, this is difficult, but it's the greatest personal development course you'll ever get. You know, I believe that this idea of be yourself is a bunch of horse. Excuse my language remotely. Be better than yourself. Be a commitment. Be something that someone else would remember you by when you die. Don't just be yourself. Myself is complaining half the time. Ask my wife. It's a whining little worthless piece of crap, okay? Be more than yourself. Hope that was useful and apologize to the people.
Class dismissed. You know, Paul and Martin and I talk about this idea of the ROI of you. It's really creating the UE, like thinking of yourself as a business, okay? It's a different mindset than a W-2, I'm looking for a job. You know, taking charge, being, I hate to use the term entrepreneurial because nobody wants to be entrepreneurial, or what few people do, but it's really looking out for your self-interest and thinking of that value that you bring that Martin speaks of, and bringing that out and selling that to an employer based upon their pain points or their gain or their desires for gain. There's a few tools you need to get going with all this. And one is good self-marketing materials. So you mentioned LinkedIn, of course, good resume, cover letters and stuff like that. Perception management. This is something I practice all the time at home and at work, because I realize that what I say and do is often judged, right? That happens to all of us. And sometimes we say things we don't mean. Sometimes we use words we shouldn't use and all that.
Mark, did you hear that?
And so, you know, how you are perceived can draw, despite your pedigree, despite your skills. If you're not perceived well in an interview, where's it gonna go, guys? Where's it gonna go? So, and then John always talks about the value of other people's words. So if I'm standing up and saying, hey, let me tell you how great I am, all right? You know, that only goes so far. But if I bribe these two guys to say, like, well,
Yeah, hey, here's my great friend Dana. He's fantastic with what he does, blah, blah, blah.
so you want to get the same thing going, the buzz going for you in terms of job applications and referrals in. Here's the thing, when you are looking for work, it's like, what's going through your head? I need a job, I want a job, I need a job, where do I go? What do I gotta do? What do I need the money? I need the data. And you almost have to step back and say, I'm gonna scrap that, that natural desire. And I'm gonna be more patient, and I'm gonna play the long game. And playing the long game means think more like a farmer or a gardener as you're out doing this networking. You know, to Martin's point, and you use gardening, great analogy, but a farmer or gardener plants seeds, plant seeds, plant seeds. What happens in the first few weeks? Nada. But what happens if you do it right? You cultivate those seeds. All of a sudden, good things happen. In fact, John and I will tell you, and Martin and Paul as well, Alton, that the people who follow this process cut their job search time significantly. And this is not unusual. Start off feeling kind of desperate, follow the process, build the relationships, quality, quantity, make sure your skill sets are up to date, okay? And maybe even futuristic. And then get out there and do this. And instead of like desperate, get a job offer, get an interview. We see people cultivate, if they do it right, multiple job offers. Now that's a different mindset, isn't it? Multiple job offers. Can that happen for me? It happens. It happens if you follow the process. And we have some tools for that, okay? Different tools are available. AI, everybody wants to know, and I already mentioned about AI. And I already talked about AI's limitations in terms of the application process, not necessarily your friend, but what can AI be used for? And Martin's created a whole new paper on this. 3 things: research, right? It's easier than Google. It's faster than Google. And now some validating stuff comes out of it. Idea generation. All right. What if you want to, what if you want to think about how can I best sell myself? I don't like to sell myself. You prompt it a little bit. Idea generation. Writing assistant. It can help complement your writing. It doesn't replace all this, okay? And I have this conversation all the time because my natural go-to is if we're doing a proposal, I'll pop it into ChatGPT and just say, give me some general ideas. You can't use that verbatim because it's missing the mark. And you prompt it, scrub it, maybe it works. I don't like this, I like that. It's just kind of like just a beginning point for you. So be careful that if you are, have to use ChatGPT or some of the others like that are out there. Do you want to talk about elevator pitches, Paul?
Yeah, a little bit though. I just have to shout out to Matt that he hit all the different things I tell you about being targeting, being your value and everything, and then a little bit about AI. I wish that was around when I was looking, but you can ask it. It says, give me a list of companies that are currently looking for it. You got your job title. You can be more effective at creating your strategy of where to go. And the writing thing is great, but it'll save you a lot of time. But a little bit about the elevator pitch, but it's your personal value statement. When you meet somebody in networking, you want to say, your name, in a title or whatever, but you want to mention how you make a difference in what you do. and the value you bring to the table. And then in with the target clients or companies that you're looking to get a connection to. And it takes a little practice, but you do that. And then when there is strategic networking, you're out networking, do whatever you can to get them the open-end questions, get them to talk more. It's the same thing in the interview. If you go to an interview and get the person to talk more than you, they're gonna like it. Maybe you don't get a chance to get a word in at home with your wife or anything, but this is just something. When you allow somebody to talk more to you, they says, "Man, he likes me," whatever. So, but all that's part of when you introduce yourself when you're out networking. I get energized when I meet new people, and the whole COVID and being at home behind a computer. This is so great to be out. You got to get out and you strategically go and meet a couple different people at these different groups. When I transitioned from my prior career, I was in IT, went through a lot of this is in the book, 3 layoffs at Nortel. And then next thing I know, I says, well, I had to reinvent myself. I transitioned and went back to hugging trees as a forester because I had a degree in forestry. But I went. When I wanted to be in forestry, when you narrow it down, you go hang out where they're at. So that's part of your networking. You got to have a plan to go meet the individual people that are doing what you're doing. And that's how you transition. So if you're in transition, you got to put a plan together, go hang out with the different associations and network with them. But that's how you end up, and then you find ways to help them. You don't make it all about you. You don't say, hey, I'm glad to meet you. I need a job. Yeah. You want to, like Mark says, get a little conversation going and whatever to soften it up, and then begin, find out what they're doing. Make it a little bit more about them and not all about you. That's the key when you're out networking.
And that's hard to do. That's hard to do. Paul mentioned about job titles and companies and being prepared to that and advancing in networking. That is so helpful to the people that want to help you. You know what's not helpful to 90% of the people that want to help you? Can you tell me what you think I should be good for or what I should look for? They don't know. I'd say of all the people I've ever connected with, I would say 10 to 20% of the people are there. They know your industry, they know your background, and they can give you some career advice like that. But otherwise, they're frustrated. Man, I don't know. What do you want to do? But if you say, look, here's my background, and here are 3 companies that I'm particularly interested in. I don't know if you know anybody there. Oh yeah, my neighbor works there, and my this and that. Okay, so that's what we're talking about with this idea of being prepared for these conversations. 9 minutes. Okay.
Or less.
So another thing. Now I'm sure nobody in here has negative thoughts, but it's not uncommon, especially if you were let go from the company, you have anger. You got to check that. You got to let that go. Because if that comes forth into any of your conversations, you're DOA. Nobody wants to help somebody that has such emotional baggage that they can't put that aside for a moment and think about new opportunities and how they can contribute. Don't dominate conversations, show general interest. These are basic things you all know. Active listening. All right, that is so important because we're a society where we listen to respond. We don't really listen. And, so sorry about this here, but I know. So, but being that listening ear will get you a long way, especially if you're selling yourself and they're talking and you figure out, well, I can help with that. But if you just kind of open up and you say, hey, I can do anything, I'm Superman, Superwoman, and I can do anything under the sun for you, not so good. Of course, don't, try not to interrupt.
Roy interrupting.
Who can you network with? Oh my gosh. Everybody, every human being, okay?
Yeah.
Now, AI has advanced, but I don't think you can network with AI yet. But friends, neighbors, acquaintances, vendors, anyone who you bought stuff from, colleagues, LinkedIn contacts, recruiters can be good networks if you treat them right. and associations, groups, centers of influence, and superconnectors. What are those? Anybody want to take a stab at what a center of influence is? Give me an example.
Colin Sheldon.
Well, a center of influence is someone who has a big network of people that they serve. And think about your banker, your retail banker. Think about your real estate agent. All right, these are centers of influence. Okay, they know a lot of people, and if you use them or they have a relation, or you have still a relationship with them, they might help you. Random. How many times have we had? It doesn't happen all the time, but people walk in. I'm at my job lead at the Harris Teeter checkout. Didn't know.
Not all the time, but sometimes.
Yes. Didn't know him, but I was standing in line. We struck up a conversation about Canadian hockey. Right. And then they came unglued because I love hockey. And they said, well, hey, I have an opening. You come by next week. Okay, we talked about this idea of broadcasting, which is spray, versus narrowcasting. In marketing, that's what they do. They develop a target market and they go after the target market. Same thing. We've already mentioned about it's easier on your network if you do it this way. You mentioned this idea of reskilling, and I want to tell you a story real quick. We have a CEO client down east and in North Carolina, and he was in the office one day and he runs a manufacturing plants. And I said, are you automating like so many manufacturing plants using robots now to get the job done? And he said, yes, we are. And I said, well, just out of curiosity, what are you doing with the workforce? And you know what he said? He said, Dana, here in my town, most of the workers in our factory cannot read or write. So I can't take someone who cannot read or write and show them how to run a robot. Now, everyone in here knows how to read and write. What if your skills are such that you're kind of over here? Okay, when this AI automation continues to proliferate, and you're a job applicant, and somebody has taken the time to be up to speed during the interview on what's going on with AI within that function, and you go, yeah, I guess I kind of heard about that. See what I mean? Wayne Gretzky. Sorry for the hockey stuff.
It's okay with Brian.
I'm not doing it just for you, but I do like hockey and skiing. I grew up in northern New England and stuff. But Wayne Gretzky, when he asked, what makes you the greatest hockey player in the world? He said, because I skate where the puck is going, not where it's been. I skate to where the puck is going. That's a challenge, folks, because you kind of got to put your crystal ball on. But ageism, you can overcome that. Presidential election, not to talk politics, but I mean from a standpoint of strategy. Look, energy and charisma beats acting old. Sorry, no matter how good you are, all right? Transferable skills, entrepreneurship. Comments on?
One thing I want to add, again, this is for people who are very bright, more introverted, is likability has an important factor, and it's not what you say, it's that you find a way to like people. And I really want to have compassion. Some people really don't like people. They're brilliant at what they do. That's okay, but when you're job hunting, you've got to find a way to like people. You have to find some little interest. That's what creates likability. I've coached like surgeons. They said, I need to be more likable because they're evaluating that now. And we had to find some way to like people. So I just want to add that little piece. It's about liking. Quick story is a friend I knew was on early social media and everyone would say how great he is. And I'd say, well, what does he do beyond being a photographer? And he'd go, I don't know. Was he married? I don't know. Well, what else does he do? Well, he's a dog. Well, why is he so great? And I studied what he did. He was authentically interacting with their content. And their experience was he was a great person. So I really want you to understand because we give a lot of these name drop terms, network, what does that really look like specifically? What if I don't like people? That's okay. You've got to actually act like you do enough to get through the gatekeeper. We've got to address, because usually it's the extrovert teaching you this stuff, but they aren't looking through the holes of the eyes of the people who have the difficulty, which I do. So go ahead.
I like Mark. Dale, what you got?
On this topic, thank you, Mark. I really like that perspective.
Yeah.
Learn to like people
Yeah.
and to be genuine about it. On the topic of entrepreneurial mindset,
Yeah.
which in this day and age is extremely important, I'd like to offer a book recommendation. Because anyone can be an entrepreneur up here.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to go out and start your own business. It means you think like an entrepreneur would think. The book is called Who Owns the Ice House?
Cool.
It's
Yeah, it's a
over
good
now.
book.
I can't
It's good
remember
training, too.
Clifton somebody is one of the authors, and the other guy's name I think is Schneider, but this guy, Schneider, actually has an organization
Yeah.
that is all about entrepreneurial mindset. I mean, he brings his programs down to the middle school level. So it's a great story, short book. It's the story of this guy's uncle, a black man in the Mississippi Delta during Jim Crow days, and how he established this ice house business. He was like the poor of the town. And then all the lessons that associate with this man's story. So if you've ever struggled with that concept and told yourself, well, I'm 100% an entrepreneur that you can imagine, then I recommend that you read that book.
Good. That's it. Go ahead.
Thank you, Deb. We're gonna go on.
Yeah, thank you. So, we're gonna take a 5-minute break, and then we're gonna set up a panel. So be thinking of your questions along the term just addressed. And we're gonna have a panel set up to answer those questions, but take a 5-minute break,
What good thing happened because you put yourself out there? Tell the crowd, be loud.
I went to the.
Not as loud as Mark, but
I don't think any of us could manage.
no.
I went.
Well
to,
done, by the way.
Yes, you have a great projected.
Thank you.
I went to the ASCM chapter meeting last night, which is basically like a local logistics coordinators meeting. And I met a bunch of nice people. Met some nice coordinators, some nice.
Doesn't matter, keep going.
And got some good connections off of it. Received invites on LinkedIn, followed up with them, and even got some answers back from them. So hopefully I see some fruit from those seeds in the next month or two.
Yeah, thank you, Jacob. Stay up here. And we'll all sit down together. Stephanie, what's a good thing that you've done by putting yourself out there and being just like willing to go ahead.
Yeah, I think also being a good student. I know everyone spoke about listening, but I think really understanding. I'm in a kind of career transition in a new industry, and so for me, I really want to be a sponge and learn. But through that, I have met some incredible contacts who truly want to help me. So I think we were just speaking about how welcoming everyone is, and especially when it comes to job search in this area. And so just the contacts I've made have been incredible, who truly are there to help.
And you've like gone through even personal change.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Like that's been positive for you, just in your terms of your talk.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes, so, I have celiac disease, so I've had to kind of go through this transition. First of all, learning about it, I had never heard about it, but, had really transitioned, from a health standpoint. I didn't realize how many different triggers there were. And so really understanding that, but then also setting some goals around that, and, from an activity level, from a health, from a nutrition. So, really transitioning my life through that as well.
Yeah. And weight loss, not
Yes,
to be
yes,
focused
yes,
on that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that's just a marker,
Absolutely,
one of the markers.
Yeah.
When you become healthier.
Yeah,
and
oh, yeah.
Alice, go ahead. Something you've learned by putting yourself out there, articles, things like that.
Sure. I moved to Raleigh on a whim. I quit my job, moved, bought a house, the whole 9 yards. And I gave my job search a couple of months before I connected up with John. And he did the thing that I didn't expect. He asked me to start writing LinkedIn articles. And I had no idea I had a passion for writing until I started writing them. And he was like my not ghostwriter, but he would critique
I
them.
was hovering in the background like.
Yeah, he was. Anyways, I really found my voice and, my passion for helping people in a more meaningful way in leadership. And what it's done for me in my career path is that I have a business relationship management certification, and I have BRMs around the world who are connecting in with me and sending me jobs and other things as I'm looking. It's really strengthened my position in my career path.
That's awesome. Gary. Good clap.
Well,
So you learn by putting yourself out there.
yeah. Well, I'm going to jump on that a little bit and say I had been invited to join an IT group here in RTP called AITP-RTP, and that's how I met John. Going to their sessions once a month, typically like an evening event where there's a speaker, I've been able to enjoy hearing new things from new people and just sort of stay involved and stay relevant. Obviously met new people that can help me in a job search. I also wrote a couple articles on LinkedIn with John's coaching. I have enjoyed this year, despite the fact that I'm looking specifically for a sales related job in the IT industry. I've been fairly picky about where I reach out and where I apply, because I want it to be a place where I thrive and can thrive for a few more years yet. And because of that search, I could have been despondent throughout the year. It hasn't happened yet, but I've actually had a great year. Not only has my golf game improved a bit, but I felt like I'm still involved. I'm still learning, even finding out about this event this morning. I am a Catholic. I didn't know about the event until yesterday, but I was able to cancel my tea time and come over here. And this is fantastic. It was great to hear what you guys had to say and meet some more people.
All right, have a seat. Great job, y'all. Give me Let's get right to the panel. We're going to forego intros. You all can introduce yourselves as you speak, just because we want to get all this content, awesome content in, and I'll be emceeing a little bit, keep the thoughts rolling. Putting yourself out there. What a great theme for today, Matt. Where is he? Good stuff. Way to go. We listened. I think you also used the word meaningful. What was that phrase? That was like, I have it written down. I'm trying not to go to my notes. Meaningful inference. Anyway, like how to integrate AI and the chaos of today to today's job search. But Dana, why don't you kick off the discussion from the panel? I don't think anybody from Dr. How do you say your last name? Or do people call you Dr. Q?
Oh, you're talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh my God. You can call me Norma, but I'm Norma Quiñones.
Norma Quiñones.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
I'll keep working on that throughout the discussion. Anyway, but let's just roll. Dana, why don't you go first? And we're going to hear great stuff from the panel. We've got Brian and Amber and Dr. Quiñones.
Call me Norma, please.
Norma, thank you.
Thank you.
Norma, Martin.
Well,
Richard.
what we imagine is we would maybe each make a little statement related to some of the things that have been covered so far that maybe add some additional flavor from your perspective, and questions from you all for panelists. Okay, because we've got HR people, we've got recruiters, we've got people. Norma's has undergone. She is in our book, and she's undergone many career transitions. She's very passionate about her faith, the Catholic faith.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's an author?
And of course, Mark and the fifth resource. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. Why don't we pick on you first, Richard, and what flavor? And by the way, Richard gave us the best quote on the cover of our book, and we cherish that, Richard. Thank you. He's had a big career in HR and talent acquisition.
It's still happening. Thank you. Welcome everybody. Delighted to be here. I want to pay credit to the organization that CNN for running this. This is great. This movement has been growing and growing over the last 10 plus years, and it's very exciting to see how many lives it's impacted. Matt said a couple of things earlier on which resonate. I wear several hats. I do career coaching. I've been in multiple job searches. I've used a lot of the techniques and tactics that everyone you come across will tell you, and they do work, but you have to work them. Okay. I'm just going to say two things. One is the book. I was actually looking at it again last night and early this morning, thinking, yes, I really must look at it again. Dana and Paul and others give very, very vulnerable examples from their own experiences of life and job search and success within the Catholic context. But it's a fabulous resource. It's a fabulous resource, as is this whole entire movement. So kudos to you guys for what you started and what you keep doing, and kudos to all of you for being here. Matt talked about what companies are seeking people who are constantly learning and nimble and flexible. And in your job search, you know, the thing that's really going to be the biggest isolator is being just by yourself, feeling you're by yourself. So I know we talk about networking and connecting, but it truly is a lifesaver. It really is the recipe for success. It all starts with that. So please keep doing more of this, and you'll land something fantastic.
How about Amber or Brian? Do you have some thoughts, like from what you've heard so far, with what you've experienced every day as, you know, recruiters and what you see and all that kind of stuff? Any quick thoughts?
Well, I've been reflecting on it, right? Because it's a personal experience for me. I was just doing some math in the back of my mind, waiting for the moment for you to say, now you got to talk, right? I worked for 35 years uninterrupted with constant employment, and never for a single minute thought I would be out of work until it happened. And since 2015, I've been in transition 3 times. The first one was, mentioned before, I was in the media business. Well, guess what happened to the media business, right? My entire technology team was outsourced, thinking that was going to solve the company's problems. It didn't, but whatever. They did what they felt that they needed to do. Went to a global software company in the media space. It was experiencing financial hardship, so guess whose number got called again, right? Came back to Raleigh, moved to Atlanta for that job, came back to Raleigh, worked for a small digital agency, was fairly successful there, I don't mind saying, but again, financial hardship, right? Guess whose number was called? Yours truly. And so there's 2 things in my life that I rate as the most difficult challenges above anything else: looking for a job and raising a teenage daughter. Like 100%. And so just as you, as
21-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
Well, mine's 25 and still kicking my butt.
There you go.
And so I get it, right? The socialization part, the feeling that, you know, you're alone and there's nobody else who can relate to it. If you can find people and a shoulder to lean on in these challenging times, you know, do it. And I think that's one of the most rewarding parts of being in the talent acquisition space, is when you get to work with an individual and you find that match, that career match. It really is a rewarding experience, and you do go home with a smile on your face that you've changed and affected 2 people positively, or 2 institutions positively. There's the person who's looking for work, and then there's the organization fortunate enough to have your new candidate or your new employee on the job, right? You're making a big difference. So that's where I get my fun out of what I'm doing today.
Amber, what about from the standpoint of what would you speak to some of the things we talked about, this spray idea? Do you see that
actually,
with people, and what's your reaction to that versus someone who maybe takes the time to understand what you might be interested in general? I mean, with the job scene.
Sure. So fortunately for you all, unfortunately for me, I can speak to you all from a very personal basis around this. Because after, you know, almost 20 years in the industry, I too found myself in the job market earlier this year, very unexpectedly. Was an unexpected layoff in February. So it hit me like a ton of bricks, because much like you said, like, never ever expected that I would be out of work. I've been working since I was old enough to babysit at 13, and suddenly I didn't have a job. So I knew, just from having been in the industry in this space for as long as I had, that the spray and pray method and the post, submit your resume was not going to work for me in terms of finding my my next opportunity. I don't know if it was a God thing or / also an experience thing for me, just knowing that somehow I was going to be connected to my next opportunity through the relationships I had built either previously over the last 20 years or through further and additional networking. So turns out that somebody that I fired years ago, knew the owner of Calica and knew I was in the job market. My relationship, although it didn't work out with us and he wasn't a good fit for my team at the time, was strong enough that he respected me and was able to tee up. So out of all of the things I expected to get a job opportunity from, it was not that one. But I guess the lesson there is like I did very little in terms of applying to jobs when it came to my job search. Almost nothing. I think I may have applied to 1 or 2 jobs, but because it's super demeaning to be applying, and then it's radio silence, or you 30 days later get sorry, we filled this position with like 0 contacts, right? Because it is very competitive. These organizations that have their job postings up there, we know very well that they're getting hundreds of applicants every day, sometimes thousands. And to comb through that and try and find their, ultimately it's going to be who you know and who can tee you up with introductions that is going to help you get to that next opportunity. Not saying you can't apply to a job and get it, but what was that statistic, 5% or less? If you're relying on that alone, then unfortunately you're going to be in the job market a lot longer than you'd like to be. So the networking piece is super key. You never know what previous relationships are going to be the one that actually sparks that next opportunity for you. And I'm proof of that.
So fire kindly.
Yes.
Go back to the people you fired and asking for a job. Jennifer.
Can I just ask a follow-up?
Sure.
I missed the time frame. When was it that you landed your current job? How many months ago?
Sure. So I was let go in February and I started with Calica in July. So
Thank you.
Norma, your story is in our book, and it's a remarkable story of overcoming a lot of our obstacles. And it would take an hour to go through the whole thing. They can read about it, but can you give us a synopsis of a couple of hardships you've been through and how you've overcome them career-wise? And also, I know you're very faithful and how that may have contributed to your success today.
Oh, thank
No.
you.
Norma.
I was just noticing he's polishing the floor out there right now. So that's
Okay.
paying attention.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And like you mentioned, and just like you also mentioned, when you have a career, you never can think that you're going to be let go, And before I made a transition from my career, I can divide my life in 2 different life moments for me, which have defined me as a professional. Initially, I wanted to be an attorney, and that could not happen for reasons that they're not on the book. But but when you have a calling, and then I entered into the educational arena, and then I was very successful in the educational arena, and I thought that was it. I was very, I don't know, gifted, and I'm gifted in the sense of the blessings that God has given me, and I love the education arena. I started as a teacher, then I became a school administrator, then I became a state director, and then from there I went to the university and became an assistant dean. So for me, that was like, this is it. I'm gonna retire from this day, and I was finishing my doctorate, and boom, just like you, this could not be happening. 2018, and there was a huge shift in the economy. And the universities also were impacted. So I didn't know what to do. I cannot define that moment as a moment of darkness in my life, because I had this, I don't know, idea that was me. But God had other plans. God defined what He wanted me to do, not what Norma was meant to do. So my husband he's an engineer, and I learned a lot from him, and he has been a great supporter. And I noticed he had worked for the biopharmaceutical industry, and I'm not going to deny this. I knew that he was making a lot more money than me, and I was just director. I'm like, what is it? What is the big difference, right? And so I prayed. The first thing God let me know was that I no longer was going to work in education. I just knew it, but I was denying it to myself because that was who I thought I was. So the first thing I will advise you is listen to God. And I mean that wholeheartedly. It's painful, but it's going to take you to places that you can never imagine. So I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to enter into the biotech industry. Like I thought, like, I can do it. Well, no, I think I was very naive in the fact that I thought, well, I have my husband, he knows people. Bottom line, I started applying and I got 0 answers. Not even we are considered zero, not to say negative. So I say, at that point I had kids in college. Talk about tuition. I was finishing my doctorate and and also, and I mean this with great respect to all of you. As a human being, you want to feel valued. You want to know that you're worth it. And when that is taken away from you, you feel like your life is lost. And I was there. So I say, I'm applying, I'm doing this doctorate, I have my kids. What am I going to do? So brilliantly, God enlightened me again. And he said, how about volunteering? But what am I going to volunteer? I know I could not go back to the school. I didn't want to go. That was the other thing. And then lately was what happened. I said, well, I volunteer in the industry. Well, regulated environment, they don't accept volunteers. But then God again. I searched some of my friends, right? I said, look, I want to get into this industry. I'm finishing my doctorate. What do I need to do? Well, they said, how about a practicum? I said, a practicum. I said, well, yeah, I need to do one to finish my PhD, right? So just through that, even to the very thing that I was pursuing all my life, education, that's what opened my door. So I started writing letters to different biopharma. Of course, not many answer, but it only takes one. Remember that. You only need one job. You only need one door. And that's what happened. So at that time, I was very blessed to be able to be sponsored a practicum at Biogen. At that time, Biogen IDEC. And I tell you this, and we can talk about that later. It's like I literally fell in love with that industry the moment I walked through those doors. And I knew, when God speaks to you, I knew that was my new home. And I didn't mean just Biogen, industry. It has been 18 years of my journey. After that moment in my life, I have grown with the industry. I have been again very blessed from starting as doing a practical, working for free, but also learning, writing my own job description, because I like to write too, and showing the value when you need this job, you need this, always moving forward with the business goal, and then growing, then became a site training director. And the last role is my last role is just being like completely unreal. Corporate director of learning and development in a biopharma too, and which all I can attribute is to God's will. And then the last thing I want to say, like you, I thought that this was, my happy ending. Well, God has other plans for me. Recently, I stepped down from my role. And there were several reasons for that. And one thing that I'm doing at this moment is to truly think, what is God's will for me? What do you want from me now? We're thinking of developing or creating a foundation, my husband and I, and other things. But you have to be open to listen to God. That's my journey. And of course, do everything that they're telling you, right? So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Norma. Well, that idea of you only need one.
Yeah,
So you only need one door.
Mhm.
That's your next book, one door. So Norma has just found her new purpose. She'll be in the back of the room. You can stand up and go back there, and she's gonna take your resume, and she's gonna help you find a job in your new field in biotech industry. Is that right? Did you say that? Did we work that out before this?
That's right.
Anyway, Norma's like, what? I did? You just said that? Okay, so I know we've heard from Dana and we've bleeped out Martin. And so we're good, but I want to go to some questions from the audience and then freewheel it here. So if you've got questions, I'll ask a question, but you may have questions. Oh, good, Shelley.
And restate the question.
Be loud.
Okay, sure. I had asked this to Mark during the break, and just staying in the room, there are young individuals here, which is wonderful. Others of us, we are not old, we're not 90, but we're over 50, maybe 60. So I think there is a concern for ageism. I didn't think that existed, but from my experience, I started to question it.
It's true.
And then Martin, if you can share what you shared with me, but then the others on the panel, I think there is value for us, just not saying.
I'm going to disrupt it a little bit because I've been watching a lot of stuff I talk to people of all different ages. Remember, there's a younger age that all receive trophies and have absolutely no confidence. So you've got to leverage the ROI of you and sell it as a feature. Like I remember a marketing guy, he says, I'm a dinosaur, but you taught me how to tap dance, and sell that as a feature. It's about finding the right match of the business. It's just like ethical sales. Ethical sales is matching up the customer that gets the highest return on investment for your product. It's not everybody. And this is the key in this process is where's the need the most? So if they're just hiring younger people, that's not your place. They might need somebody like you to help them teach their younger people how to fail enough to actually develop some real confidence. That was a joke. Anyway, but I really want to I can't tell you how many people I met where they'll say it's ageism, and I'm going, businesses need to make money. They're capitalistic business. Are you showing insight into solving their problem better than anyone else? Are you selling your age as a feature, not a detriment? And this is the thing. And if you're younger, we're going to reverse that. So it's all about finding the right match for it. And find a way to sell the features you have and ask where it is. You and I talked about it. It might mean I have to transition into another field where there is a demand. Yeah. Okay.
Let me go to Richard. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good stuff. So for the first time, we've got like 5 generations or 4 generations in the workforce. So multi-generational workforce. The organization I work for has invested a lot internally in mentoring. And so there is an incredible, with the life experience, people over whatever age you feel is the age at which it's hard to land something quickly. Okay. You've got tons of life experience. So as you're putting your resumes together, as you're putting your talking points together, your value proposition, really major on that. And then when you're in your networking meetings, talk about that, steer the conversation into that. So if you have an information meeting with a company, what do you do about mentoring? This is something I've done. I volunteer to do this. You'll find the conversation will take a very different turn if you do. That's invaluable experience that, it's, yeah.
Let's turn. I want to turn to Calica because they see this all the time. But also, before we do, I want to say something about Brian during his search. He was not necessarily happy about putting himself out there, but you know what he did? I called him the grinder. And in hockey, that means the people that go into the tough areas don't want to get the credit, but are willing to do the work. So sometimes just going in and doing the work and grinding it out and making those connections, even when you feel uncomfortable. You're supposed to do it, but you do it. I want to give him credit for that because that's how he persevered. I would see him like, Brian probably won't be here, I would say, and then he'd show up. Like resilience is really key to this, and along with what the other panel says. But I'd love to hear from Brian, the grinder, and Calica, because Calica is an extraordinary firm in that They look at you as the person first, not the slot they need to fill, which is actually unique today. I think some recruiters are finding out that's the way it should be, and some companies and recruiters inside are finding a way. Of course, Oracle does this wonderfully, right now. So, but they see you as the person first, and that's why we love Calica. Calica, speak to this point.
Well, John, you're very kind to phrase it like that. I can tell you didn't feel like that.
No.
Absolutely going through it. And I think that, did I want, if you look at my personality profile, sitting in front of a large group of people scares the crap out of me, right? I'm an introvert. You know this, right? It doesn't come naturally, but you learn to adapt and you learn to do different things. And the job search for me was torture. No question. And John would say, are you going to the networking event? It'd be like, well, actually, I'm going to schedule root canal.
Without painkillers, because that'd be more enjoyable.
Yeah, right? If I could give birth, I would do that too. Supposed to go to another networking event. And to be honest, I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but I got frustrated and fed up and applied to Hendrick, Durham, Cadillac, and went and sold vehicles. And as a salvation for my own head, and you want to talk, not to diminish that skill, but you want to talk about humble pie, right? I mean, working Friday nights, working Saturdays, working 1 month in some.
Well, you had to be out in front of people all the time, which was uncomfortable for him.
Yeah, it was.
But he said, look, I'm going to do something I don't want to do for a temporary time because there is that one door that's going to open.
Sure, and I can fast forward to the story. And so Hendrick, good company, paid my health benefits completely, right? So I made a reasonable income, sold more new Cadillacs than anybody else on the team. And I went to Cadillac to feed my ego, right? There's one that's sitting out there that I got a sweet deal on. It fell for a good price. It was spectacular.
It's the number one thing you should do in job search. Buy a new car.
Well, I was working at the time. No, I got the GM discount and the employee discount. So it was amazing. And they paid my health benefits. But you know what? The one positive that came out of that, I've been through lots of training, right? I mean, my hair shows that. Best training I ever had in my life. A woman named Barbara Earle. I don't know where she is today, but that woman could train like nobody's business. And she taught me how to sell. She really, really did. And it worked like a charm. So that was my takeaway from that. And I learned how to be somebody I really wasn't instinctively. And then one night, sitting on the couch, just flipping through LinkedIn, doing what you all probably are doing, right? And I see a post from Calica. I go, Calica. Calica's looking for a talent advisor. Well, that's interesting. I'm kind of tired of the car thing, right? I really want to do something else now, right? I've got a busy mind. And I had met our founder, Keith Langbo, in 2017, thanks to John. Went in, if you know Keith, at 6:30 in the morning on a cold January day. He was
wearing shorts.
He was wearing shorts and a Calica shirt. And he was on the treadmill in the office. So we sat down and we met. We had a great conversation. We connected because we're both Canadian by birth. No, his family was Canadian. He lived there for a bunch of years. I'm Canadian by birth, naturalized in 2017. Very grateful for that. But so we had a conversation, and he said, "Boy, I'd really like. You seem like a really good guy. If I had a job for you, I'd like to give you one. Any chance you want to be a talent advisor?" No, not really today, right? And fast forward. That was in January 17. Fast forward to February 2020. There's me sitting on the couch at home watching TV, going through my phone and looking for a talent advisor. I'm frustrated. I'm fed up. Back to the grinding thing. I just got to do something. I had literally. This might not be the right thing to say in this group, but I had given up sending job applications out, right? Because it yielded nothing. And so I texted Keith through LinkedIn. He responded to me within 10 minutes, like he typically does, and said, "I'm going to put you in touch with our HR person." Got on the phone, went through the interview process, went into Calica as an entry-level talent advisor, learned the business, and was fortunate enough that about a year and a half into that, Calica reached a point where it was looking for some management and leadership. And I said to Keith, "I want that job." And that's how I am where I am today. And so I don't know whether I did anything spectacularly right. It was just what I felt I needed to do in the moment to move myself forward. Fortunately, it kind of worked out because I'm really happy doing what I'm doing. So.
Daniel's. Last comments from each person, starting with Richard.
Oh,
And
yeah,
we'll go to a question. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Susan.
During actually, Norma, you and I used to work together in Hydrogen, probably in
I remember you
2015.
very well.
Like, as the pandemic started, I created a, Facebook career group. And it's now grown to 23,000.
Wow.
It's too damn passive. I want to have events. I believe that there are business networking groups, but there are not enough interactive, like how to network for the job seeker. I mean, yes, there's classes through WaveTech and things like that, but I just kind of implore, I'll bring the people, if y'all can do.
Susan, that's pretty awesome. You know what I would do? What I would suggest is get with some of the panel.
Yeah.
Like.
Host a lot of different events and
I love,
facility.
But also there's a lot of content,
Yeah.
like Martin and others, you might be able
And I
to say,
want
how could I share that? How could we collaborate
Yes.
and do that? So that's a great question and
And
tell
I
us about
want
how to get to the
inspire
career.
people.
That's awesome. You're part of the mission. How do we get to your career group so we can join it? Go ahead.
It's Triangle Career Care Team.
Triangle Career Care Team.
Yes.
All right, and I'm sure people in the room will have no lack of ideas if you want to do this.
And I feel that's what my spiritual calling is, to help.
Well, you're right in the right place.
61 kind of
Excellent.
fading out of
She's young.
Good.
regular career.
Okay, let's do this. Last thoughts from the group, and we will have time for questions. We're not done yet, but however, we're done with the panel after your last comments. Go ahead quickly, Richard.
Keep networking, you're never gonna be younger than you are today, right? So, do everything you can every day. Get up with a smile on your face, get at it. It works.
Awesome. Martin?
I was thinking of the concept of the gift of allowing people to contribute to you as something to think about, today. It's like, how are you letting people contribute to you as a gift?
And how do people get to your content?
Google Martin Brossman or connect me on LinkedIn. I have quite a bit online.
Norman.
And you have my little podcast card on your stage.
Thank you, Martin. Norman.
Well, for me, I had two suggestions for all of you, which I practice every day. You need to surrender. You need to surrender to your reality. That doesn't mean giving up. That's not what I'm saying. And it's painful. But also, as you get out of that shadow, you start refining you again. It's literally, and it's gonna sound like a cliche, it's a new you. Literally. Things that you didn't think you can possibly do or experience, you will. Never lose your faith. Never, ever do that. The enemy exists, and we don't talk about those things. And that impacts everything that we do and how we behave. I believe that there's only one God, and that one God is a big God, and He does big things for all of us. And it might sound like I'm preaching it here. No, we need to live it. We need to live that. And I think that all of us in here are witnesses of that. And the other thing is, see yourself. You need to experience seeing yourself. And people don't like to look at yourself in the mirror. I have a huge mirror. I really do. And I'm not kidding when I tell you this. And I look at Norma. How Norma sees herself. How my husband, how my kids look at me. But the bottom line, how is God looking at me and listening in the silence? And that is going to lead you. It's painful, but it's also a marvelous, literally a marvelous journey for us to take and take this as an opportunity. But again, never surrender, never doubt of your capabilities. And one thing that all of you have mentioned, keep learning. Keep learning.
Very good. Thank you, Norma. Amber.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Short and sweet.
Brian.
Well, I already talked for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Summarize it in 3 words.
I think Amber nails it, right? Getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, and not being afraid to recast yourself in a different light instead of maybe following the career path that you've been on. If there's something else that appeals to you, don't be afraid to start again.
And the only thing you might change if you had to do it again is you didn't realize there were people who believed in you and could see your potential out there. You just needed to go after those. And Keith's unusual, but there are people that get you and will get you.
Sure, but I think just one other point in many respects, the theme of today, which is network, relationship. I'm at Calica because John knew Keith and I knew John, and that's where the connection happened. And I got the job by sending one LinkedIn message.
One door,
to the
right?
person.
One door, right, Norma?
Right person at the right time.
It's true.
Brian, thank you.
Sure.
Dana,
So,
wrap it up and do better than those guys.
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
here's the thing, okay, no matter your skill set, your background, your age, your sex, your whatever, do an honest assessment of what you bring to the table in terms of what's important to an employer and what's in your interest and passion the best you can. And accentuate those positives and work on things that you deem need to be filled the gap to make you stronger as a job applicant.
Good stuff. Let's give him a hand.
Yeah.
Hey, Marcus, did you have a question? Or are you good?
Actually, with the panel together, we heard a lot about AI earlier today and role of AI and workforce and role of AI in hiring. And yet everybody says, get around AI, get personal, it's your network, talk to people, so back to being human. So especially you in the employment agencies, where you see the role of AI fitting into your job description versus the role of being a human.
Super quick answer, if you don't mind.
So I wrote down from Matt earlier, human intelligence will always precede AI because it's based on human conscience. So as much as AI is a part of our world now in terms of how we recruit and making sure we're staying on top of the technology that allows us to do our job maybe a little bit faster or more efficiently, the AI piece is not gonna identify the right candidates alone for us, right? There is still a huge human component. And one of the selling points that we use as an agency in Oricle is that we are not only just throwing resumes across the fence, we are capturing those resumes maybe with the help of AI, but then still meeting with those people and talking with them multiple times before we even present them to the client. We're getting to know them and understand them. So like, again, AI is not going anywhere, but you cannot replace the human aspect of it. And that's where the relationship building comes in and really getting to know somebody and looking at what's beyond the resume. The resume only gives you so much. Profile only gives you so much. It's just words, right? Then anybody can throw a bunch of technical words on there and it look good, but then you got to get in front of them and it may not be the right fit because they're culturally not aligned or what have you. So
that's good.
That was my big takeaway.
Meaningful inference, very well done. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention Martin's book, Harnessing Artificial Intelligence for Brick and Mortar Businesses, that has concepts that will help you as well. And also, I would say this, you can improve your stories, you can do things with AI, but just like you heard from the panel, your stories, not just your story, your stories are your stories, and you need to tell them well. You could have improvement from AI, but only you can bring your stories to the table. And that's why what I loved about what you said and what everybody said on the panel. Let's do this. Have to say less than 5 minutes. If you need a quick break, if not, stay in your seats. We got Suzanne Carter. Are you here?
I am, yeah.
Lovely. Get right up here because you're going to go in just a few minutes. If you need to go run out, grab a cup of coffee, whatever, do it. But let's get back in like 3 minutes. I'll introduce yourself while people are getting settled, just a little bit, what you do for the ministry, a little bit about your family and your military background. Go.
So, Alton Delane, I'm one of the co-directors here. I didn't start it, but I joined it when I first moved to the Raleigh area in 2018 from New Jersey, and was looking to get involved in the community and found the organization. And after the first meeting, I was hooked. The whole concept of the dignity of work and the St. Joseph, the patron saint of workers, were really resonated with me. And in transition, it was super helpful. And after a couple of meetings, I joined and wanted to get more involved. I've got a family of 3 kids, 22, 20, and 16. I'm truly blessed. And I run an education technology company that creates interactive learning environments in K-12 schools. But in my former life, I was a submarine officer stationed in Charleston and Groton, Connecticut, deployed into the Atlantic and the Caribbean. And really happy to be a part of this ministry and part of all the great individuals that are involved in this. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Paul, for doing what you guys have done. And it's so great to see every one of you guys here and participating and sharing and networking and building relationship, because as we've seen, I think in a most definitive manner, that relationships matter and relationships make the difference. And so I'm just excited and hope you guys really take advantage of the people here and the relationships and the openness to help one another. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, John.
Yeah.
Good man, thank you. You have the stage. We're already into your time, so I want you to just roll. She's got an incredible background, recruiting and the like. I know we've been weaving in intros. He needs to do some bio stuff during, but why don't you roll? We've got some more good stuff from Suzanne.
All right.
Suzanne Carter.
First of all, welcome. I actually work for Holy Name. And so I do most of my ministry and teaching in this room. So it's kind of fun to see a good group. So I actually run the marriage office here. So I do weddings. But that's not where we started. So I kind of wanted to walk you through. I'm so excited that your mission statement and today's theme is navigating today's job market with faith and purpose. I really loved hearing everyone on the panel really share. I'm going to really invite you to kind of do a little deeper of a reflection, because a lot of people in your shoes, I think, are always on the move and trying to stay in motion. And this season, all of you that are Catholic here know that this is Advent. Advent is actually a time of preparation. And what are we preparing for, right? And I want to really kind of like almost redirect that. I'm going to give you my recruiter background, and I'm going to give you some hints on what recruiters see and what line managers do, but I don't want to start there. So I'm going to kind of just a brief introduction. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. So born and raised in Cleveland, and I went to graduate school at St. Mary's Seminary. But that's actually, so back up, back in Cleveland, Ohio, born and raised, went to Bowling Green State University. I'm a former recruiter, so I work for Robert Half International. So I will get to that background. But I kind of want to start with the fact that God has a divine plan for you. So I want us to start kind of thinking about how every experience that you've ever had, good or bad, actually plays to who you are today and what you're going to use going forward. So just to give you a brief background, my daughter just got married last year at Sacred Heart Southport. My husband actually was transferred down here 7 years ago, and he works for John Deere. And so he is in the golf division. And so he travels all around to all the golf courses nationwide. And so I have taken up golf. So anyway, my daughter got married. We've actually got 3 daughters. And so those who are raising girls, I understand what you're saying. And so I've got Alyssa, who's 25, Lindsay, who's 23, and Michaela is in civil engineering at University of Cincinnati, and she is 18. So that's kind of my family from a perspective of girls. And so a little about my journey. So I want to talk about, it's almost also who you surround yourself with, right? And so back in July, we had 5 priests come down from Cleveland to celebrate the sacrament of marriage. And so the reason I want to say that is because the beautiful thing about God's plan is he always leads us to people that will be an important part of our journey. And everyone plays an important role. So I want you to start to thinking about reflecting and kind of going back to how God has had you have these different encounters. Some encounters weren't so positive, right? We're probably thinking of people are like, ugh, I really don't see any good in them, but there is, right? Because they formed something in you that you have taken away. So actually, I want you to start thinking about every situation plays into actually who we are as people, and then especially what mission we have that God has actually instilled just for you. It's a very important part because I think a lot of times our culture wants to kind of get you back into the dark, right? And so I want to kind of concentrate on how God's trying to illuminate your path and your next step. And sometimes when we're in the darkest days, we have to almost think about just a little lantern. And when I went back to school for theology, and I'll tell you a little about that story, my spiritual director said, all it takes is a lantern of light to take one step. Because I think a lot of times we're like, oh, what am I going to do? I don't have a lot, money's going. I don't have all of this. We get so panicked. And panic is not where we make good decisions, right? We make desperate decisions. So I want us to start thinking about Advent. I want to start thinking about where the Lord has a plan for your life, and especially that next step, even if you kind of feel like you're in darkness. Okay, so I want to start there. One of my favorite sayings is Mother Teresa. So I want us to kind of look at this. So never do work carelessly because you wish to hide your gifts. Remember that work is his. You are his co-worker. Therefore, he depends on you for that special work. Do the work with him, and the work will be done for him. The talents God has given you are not yours. They have been given to you for your use, but for the glory of God. There can be no half measures in the work. If you build your whole mission statement around Mother Teresa's advice, we will all have a job in the new year. I promise you. There is more work than servants in the vineyard. I know that for sure. So I want to tell you about how I ended up leaving corporate America, trained in corporate America, but two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled, and that has made all the difference. So what happened with my personal life is I was a recruiter flying all over the country, making a lot of money. My mom was watching my two kids. They were age 3 and 5 at the time, and she was diagnosed with ALS. So she got a terminal sentence and died at age 58. With that agenda of like, now I'm lost, right? We're traveling the world, we have all this money, but now my two kids, there's no daycare, there's nothing. And I kind of had to decide what I was going to do. And so going through a death experience with my mom, I thought, you know what? Money is not going to bring me happiness. So I actually, and it was really interesting how the Lord works, because I was out in Las Vegas. Robert Half International has a big thing every year, Reach for the Stars. I was getting a big award, and I called my husband and I said, this will be my last week at Robert Half. And so I came back and I did quit my job after winning that big award, and I applied at the seminary to get my degree in scripture. And so it was kind of dramatic, but it was one of those things where I had to make a deliberate choice. And I actually knew I couldn't look back, because Robert Half is like, why would you do this? Why didn't you just go part-time? Why didn't you stay with us? But that's the ear of someone who's trying to focus on what they needed, right? They needed me out in the field. I was bringing in a lot of money at Robert Half. So that to them was the fact of, were they really thinking about me as a person and what I had just gone through? And no offense, but I'm saying the fact that corporate America sometimes is about their bottom line, right? Not about our soul. So I actually left Robert Half and I went back to school, and it took me 3 years to get my master's in scripture. And my first class at the seminary up at St. Mary's Seminary was Christian anthropology. And I suddenly learned about St. John Paul II's theology of the body. And I became certified to teach sexuality. And so what happens in our world is, if God is driving the ship for you, he will actually put you in the place where you're supposed to gain the knowledge for your next step. And so I loved on the panel when they said, keep learning. So I would say the fact of January 1, I would sign up for a class in anything. because you can then go with that because then your mind is in motion. You have a focus, you have something to do. So Christian anthropology, Sister Mary McCormick, I attribute my next steps to her because I loved and fell in love with theology of the body. So anyone that doesn't know what theology of the body is, I'll just sum it up in 2 seconds. We were created male and female, and together we form life. And so that's what I teach now at the cathedral. And so I was hired to run the marriage preparation program here by Monsignor Brossman, and Bishop Burbage hired me as soon as I got down here from Cleveland. I met him at a mass a week later. I introduced myself. I said, hey, I'm Suzanne Carter. I just got my degree from St. Mary's Seminary. And he said, call me Monday. I have a job for you. And so Bishop Burbage hired me. I was here a week. And so it really is when you trust in God's plan, he somehow puts you in front of someone who can take your next step. And so Bishop Burbage hired me. I started the diocese and I started marriage and family. And so I teach sexuality. I teach it to the little kids about their dignity and worth. I teach them about their morality. And so I teach confirmation classes. And then Monsieur Brockman brought me over here to teach marriage prep. So I teach natural family planning, pro-life, and I teach theology of the body. So I have done everything to design the program off of sacred art. So our cathedral, if you haven't been up there, please visit. But I have built my whole program about beauty because actually by nature, God created us to be attracted to beauty. So when we bring these couples, we're so thankful that they get married in church, right? Rather than getting married at the venue and all that, I'm so thankful that they actually want God in their covenantal marriage.
Or in Las Vegas at that chapel.
Exactly, right, that good. So we're so thankful. So what I've done is I've actually designed the whole program on the encounter with beauty. And so that they start seeing the beauty of their sexuality and the beauty of life, not what the culture says, right? Look at the $1 billion porn industry. So I've done everything on beauty. So today I actually want to take you through the art of interviewing. So I will go back and put my hat on as a recruiter. I worked for Robert Half for 15 years. And so I developed multiple relationships with all the companies around the world. I placed accountants, controllers, CFOs of companies. I've interviewed thousands of people. Now God has me interviewing couples, but I used to interview CFOs, CEOs, and I placed them as a headhunter for years. So the art of interviewing. So Robert Half is their logo is hired, get hired. We're the best place for both. So Robert Half is a phenomenal company to this day. I want to talk about if you are getting ready to interview, and I want you guys to start thinking about things a little differently. And I heard that this was in the book, so we're going to go something through the STAR program. But when we used to tell people to interview, we would coach them. And a lot of times people make mistakes on easy things. And it would just kill me. You know, I prepare this person, we get them all ready, pumped up and all of that. And I called the line manager and I was like, how did Frank do today? And he said he blew it. And I'll tell you why. So we'll kind of do that. So first of all, do your homework on the company. Know their mission statement and make it your own. Do your homework on the hiring manager. How long have they been there? Have they been hopping around? Because if they're hopping around, they're probably not going to be loyal to you either. Okay. Dress for success. I can't believe sometimes that people don't dress professionally. And this says a lot about the image that you are producing for yourself. Okay. So what you wear is a reflection on how much you care for yourself. Bring 4 to 5 copies of your resume. Yeah. Does anyone have a question?
Ryan. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Ryan.
I know like dress professional, but I know some people who don't have like a suit or anything to dress professional.
Right.
Actually, there's the places that will give you a suit.
There is something
Yeah.
called for, primarily for women, dress for success.
Yeah. Right.
And does someone want to say something about that 1 second?
Yeah.
1 second, Melissa. do.
Yeah, I've done volunteered for it briefly. Yes, it's a place that you can where they can help you with your resume and they can actually find a wardrobe for you. And
Yeah.
job interviews.
And you know, there's the Goodwill Industries in this city.
Has great.
That's some nice stuff.
And I would say
Dorcas
Right.
Ministries.
the biggest thing to say, the biggest thing I can say is wear new shoes or at least shoes that look new.
Here's the thing.
That's the most important thing.
I don't know, I think Suzanne and other recruiters would agree. If you just do your very best from where you are now,
Right.
it's, people will see your heart. They will see who you are underneath that.
Yeah.
But if you need help, that's part of what these ministries are for.
Exactly.
And nobody should be afraid to ask for help, because
Right.
if you don't need help, you should be thinking there, but by the grace of God go I,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
we all need to help each other. And that's
Yeah.
something, Ryan,
So I'm
there's
just
a
gonna
lot of
say,
help out there.
the reason I say this is because people do notice, because what they will do is a lot of times, they want to know how you keep yourself, right? In some cases, they will even see how you keep the inside of your car, which I know sounds weird.
Yeah.
But they will know how you activate, so they'll watch you pull up, and I will tell you, the biggest thing you can do is be nice to the staff that greets you, okay? Very nice, because they ask them. Every lineman, from a CFO down to the little person that was hired maybe to work on the maintenance. They ask you, how did you treat the person that opened the door for you? Okay, very important stuff. Bring a list of your experiences, bring a list of questions. And I'm gonna get into more specifics, but always have a question. If you have said in the past, no, I think you've covered it all. No, you will not get hired. Yeah, you will not get hired. Because they actually want to see, are you curious? Do you have any kind of things that you're asking? Ask the question. And even if it has been answered, just say, actually, I did come in with that question and you did answer part of it, but I'd like to follow up with something, because that shows you listened, right? That you weren't just preparing what you had to say. You're like, oh, I'm so great. Hire me. Well, you didn't even hear what they were actually saying. Okay. So I always say this, because I'm going to go through the STAR method, is wise men still seek him. The Lord has a plan for you. If you walk away from anything today, and I loved the panel saying that, who that was, God has a specific mission for you to accomplish in his kingdom. When you start thinking about that, as far as God has a mission for just me, he does. So I want you to think about this. So the STAR interview method, and I know this is in the book, but the STAR interview method is basically behavioral interviewing. And this is how we used to do it even back in Robert Half. So we're talking many years ago, because I was with Robert Half in 2011. I'm sorry. Yeah. So the situation, task, action, and results. I'm not going to be able to do a whole thing on this, but it's in the book. But here's what I will say about this. When you describe a situation, I think over Christmas, it would be great if you start thinking about different situations that plug into exactly what you'd like to do. Think about a scenario, because this is usually what fails most when an interviewer calls me. They're like, yeah, the sample they brought up, it was kind of embarrassing. I'm like, what? Of all the stories, why'd you share that one? So basically what happens is sometimes we get a little nervous and we're in the interview and we're thinking of something, and then a story comes out. You want to be strategically planned for that story. So situation, describe the context within it. Here's the biggest problem also that can happen. You think, well, they want to see that I'm a team player. They do, but this is actually your situation. Because if they're like, well, my team did this, and then my team did this, and we rocked this team, they're like, well, I'm not hiring the team. So what did you do? Okay, so it's very important. It's great that you say, I worked on a collaborative team, but you want to say what you did. Task, explain exactly what challenge was opposed to you. And this was a challenge that we had. Our inventory was low. We couldn't get things. Parts were being screwed up. Our vendors were terrible. Name it exactly, and then especially the action that you took specifically to address that. This is where most people fail. It's actually in the result. It's actually this part. So share the outcomes of your action, emphasizing achievements and learning. The key part is the fact that how did you deliver that result? It was based on what you did, your accomplishments. Behavioral interviewing. So know the mission statement of the company and then tie yourself into that. Say, I love that your mission statement is blah, 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 blah. The reason I was attracted to that is this part of that mission statement, and be very specific. Because then you've identified the fact that this company values this mission statement and I fit right in because actually I can see that that's part of my mission statement as well. Okay. Then you're already saying, I'm with you, right? We're a team already. You haven't even hired me, but I'm with you. Okay. So the structure of your presentation, you want to basically use the STAR method in all of this. So name an example, how you did it, then what you did, and then what was your final result. This also works when there is so when you practice your delivery. So the biggest problem sometimes also is when people are like, what do you think your weaknesses are? And a lot of people are like, well, I kind of turn my weakness into a strength. That is good, but the thing that you can do better is the fact of name a weakness in the past, use the STAR method to go through it, and then actually explain how now it's not a weakness. Because everyone knows we've made mistakes. You know, say I went with this vendor out in California. It was cheaper. I thought it was great. I built a friendship with them. We got the product in. It was par. It was bad. You want to basically say the fact of, I thought I was doing a great thing by sourcing out that, but I got what I paid for, learned that lesson, didn't go with that vendor anymore. Okay. So these are the kinds of things where the fact of everyone has a weakness, but what we've done is identify the fact of I'm still learning. And I think when you tell people that, that's an attractive quality. The fact of I'm still learning, because someone who comes in like, I'm a rock star. I'm a rock star. I can sell all this. I'm a rock star. No one's a rock star. Okay. So basically you want to say the fact of, I know that there's always something more to learn. There's more things on the cutting edge, and don't be a master of it. Say, actually, I really am seeking more knowledge on this. This is fascinating for me. So prepare your questions. Always have questions. So have good questions, but have a question. So the fact that consider how your experiences relate potential for this role. The thing I also want to tell you, anyone that is interviewing for a sales job, make sure you ask for the job. Because they're like, I'm a closer. So I can't wait to start on Monday. Okay. So what I'm saying is the fact of all the salespeople out there, you make sure the fact that they know you're a closer. And so ask for the job. And then also a secondary thing that you always want to do is ask how long the person has been there that you're interviewing, because you might not want the job. Okay. Because I would tell people, ask if that's been like a hot seat, it's a hot seat for a reason. People don't usually leave because of money. People leave because of management, because they don't feel worthy. They don't feel that they've been seen. And so most people don't leave for money. And so what I would say is the fact that make sure that when you are asking the questions, ask about their background as well. It shows interest. It shows all of that. Another lead for you guys is maybe something you haven't heard before. But if you guys have interviewed for a job and you end up being second candidate, or somehow you never heard back from the recruiter, first of all, I have to say recruiters are kind of not so great anymore. They've lost that respect of like manners. So if I were going to go back in the industry, I would be a training on how to be a better recruiter, because recruiters these days are missing that element, because you never know if someone shared that they hired them. You never know when that's going to come back up again. Be very careful how you treat people. So you always be respectful, right? Send your thank you notes. Even if the recruiter doesn't get back to you, send a thank you note. So you do the right thing. But what I'm saying is the fact of think about the jobs that you really thought you were a perfect fit for. Follow up to see how their hire did. Hey, Mr. Oliver, I know you hired, I know you didn't give me the job, but I really did think I was a good fit. How is your person working out? And just say, and actually a lot of people are like, I would never do that. Is that pride? Whoopsie. You have to look at that. Okay. So you don't want the sin of pride to interfere with you saying, hey, listen, I actually really did think I would be great for your company. If there's anything else. And then also another thing that companies do a lot of times is they meld positions together because someone has left, and then all of a sudden they meld skills together. You're like, this doesn't seem like a match. You might even want to suggest that and just say, if you do get an interview, just say, it's interesting. Was this always the job description? I'm just curious. Because you're asking for an outgoing accountant. That's a little strange. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is the fact that you might want to just say, was this a combined job description? Because if not, just say the fact of, if you ever end up switching this role would be very, very solid on its own. Sometimes you can actually help them and be a little bit of a consultant, okay? Because I used to do that. I would read a job description and I'm like, I don't think you're going to find this person. Just saying, this does not match. So I want to get back to other helpful tips, and then I can take questions if you want to know kind of what the recruiter sees, and then also what line managers have shared with me on when a candidate does not get the job and why.
Suzanne,
So, yeah.
excuse me, for the essence of time.
Yeah.
What I'd love to do is to have that, you on the panel, and then they.
And then, so the Q and A, if any of that comes your way as
Sure.
well, is that
Yeah.
okay? Can you stick around for the panel?
Yeah, I can stick around for that. So
Perfect.
this is, I want to just end with this, and I'm happy to kind of stick around and answer any questions. But don't worry about losing. If it's right, it happens. The main thing is to not hurry. So nothing good ever gets away. So if you are supposed to have something that God wants you to help in a certain industry, it will happen. But sometimes it's God's providential timing and not our own little human spirit saying, I want it now, you know? So sometimes God has to take our passy out and put our passy back in. Okay. So sometimes it's on God's timing. Okay. All right.
Is that the children's ministry? Or tips for married?
Exactly. It's both.
Yes, I think that would be good to the men in marriage
All right.
situation.
So I'm happy to help anybody I can.
All right, stick around, but we want you to have the most of the panel. Come up and have a seat. I want to share a little bit of a personal story as they're getting settled. It's a kind of a message, I think it's a powerful message of inclusion. My uncle was a priest, and in fact, we called him uncle, was the first O'Connor to come over to the United States. Although I'm not Catholic, however, I think Sarah will be converting me soon. I did grow up around that. My dad at the end of his life came back to the church, and I'm really glad he did. There was a lot of forgiveness and a lot of things that happened. But my uncle, his brother, Jack, who eventually became a Monsignor in San Francisco, was prominently featured in an iconic photograph of Pope John Paul II hugging an AIDS baby outside of Mission Dolores in San Francisco. You can actually Google this. And the moment, to me, was captured so beautifully. He sent it out in a Christmas card. I remember getting it, not really knowing the significance of it. And if you don't know, it spoke volumes about the universal love and dignity we owe to every person, regardless of their circumstances. It was a reminder of true leadership, whether in faith, careers, community, begins with empathy and a willingness to embrace those who may feel marginalized. So and that baby's name is Brandon. But if you see, my uncle's right there smiling, because that was his church, Mission Dolores in San Francisco. And it was if you don't know that time, because there are young people in the room, are like, is that on like the History Channel somewhere? Because I'm obsessed with the 80s and 90s. But it was a time of significant fear and stigma surrounding HIV and AIDS. And it remains a deeply moving symbol of love, dignity, and the universality of human worth. I don't think the Pope asked if that child was Catholic. I don't think that Mother Teresa did her work in a beautiful building, but most of the work occurs outside of this room, and what we do. And whether you're Catholic, whether you have a faith background, whether you're not, I think that's kind of the point of today. Whether we disagree on certain issues, we might. But I wanted to just say one other thing. My son, Colin, and Alton can relate to this with special opportunities, as one person said. I remember one of the moments. He lives with us. He's 26, but I remember one of the moments they had him read and you reminded me of the Suzanne, the marriage. I remember we went to out east for one of the people who helped him through the autism program. And she asked Colin to speak. So he stood up there with my wife and did a better job of memorizing this. 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. So it's about you. It's about you embracing your stories. And I just wanted to share that from my point of view, since we are at the cathedral. But Suzanne, thanks for inspiring that, and others. Dana?
Thank you, John. So we're winding down, we're running a little over, not getting kicked out. We have some here.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Security is here. But I hope you found this helpful. We're going to wrap up with this panel. I have a few remaining remarks afterwards, not the least of which is I want to make sure everybody gets the green book that we talked about, and there's extra, so I want to talk about that before we leave. A few other comments, but why don't we just open it up, if you guys are okay, just fire away, fire away with your burning questions about job search, career transition.
Any questions that follow up on the interview? As we do that, I just want you to actually stand up. Sarah and Colleen, are there any careering apostles?
All career apostles.
Stand up just for a moment and wave. Pete,
Bill, Mike.
if anyone has questions after this, like to know more of the ministry, like to follow up, has comments, questions, complaints, steer it to Dana first, but no. If you have anything you want to share and you want to get with us or any of the apostles, please make yourselves available, Pastor. Questions from the room? Go ahead. Answer your name, Sarah.
Will.
Hey,
Yeah, I have a question for you because you talked about following up with people,
Yes.
especially, if they get, and what I've found right now is I get that same verbatim automated AI response in every application, which says, thank you for your interest. Well, it's about a candidate at this time. Please try to drop us in, but you do follow up with somebody that you had human contact with. We're in a busy world this day and age, and to some degree, you're nobody when you're sending this email, right? They've already filled the position, they've got other bigger fish to fry. So what do you do when you don't get a response ever from somebody? I mean, do you follow up third, fourth time, or just kind of?
So sometimes we have to be a little creative. So as a headhunter, because our job was to kind of sometimes find out jobs that weren't posted, most of the good jobs are not posted. Okay, so I will tell you that. So most of the good jobs are ones that the company are formulating as far as, a need, but they haven't really posted in HR. And sometimes the HR policies make it so hard to even find the right candidate because they have so many things on them to match up, right? And so the line managers sometimes get frustrated. So the best thing you can do is if you can private message them on LinkedIn as a follow-up. Maybe an email is not the best, but if you do have their personal email, you could. It needs to convey something of value. I'm following up. I've taken some additional classes, or I found out something that I wanted to tell you might work for what you shared with me in the interview, because it makes you seem like you have something creative to tell them. Something like, hey, did you see the study they're doing? Or did you see this new thing coming out of California? I'm sure you saw of it, but I wanted to tell you that I'm actually taking a class to get a little more certified in this. I just want to follow up because I actually really enjoyed the time we spent together. Any compliment specifically you can give them is great, because it shows the fact that you paid attention, that it wasn't all about you. It was about their company mission statement. Keep that company mission statement if you like the company, and have everything apply back to that.
All right, that's awesome. I know the other panelists can answer that, and I want to go to Jennifer and Deb because we haven't heard from them either. Next question, and if you want to hit that one in addition, you can. But let's get to the next question.
Well, can I just say? just so you know, her coach and very entrepreneurial, okay, in the past. Jennifer's HR, in the past, HR manager, now consulting in HR. And Alton is up here now, you know the recruiter, so Alton is up here.
Alton introduced.
Because he is part of the group team, but he has undergone a significant career transition from corporate America to owning his own business, so that helps formulate any.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Question from the group. Anything else? You have a question?
Yeah. Are there such things as headhunters out there anymore? Kind of a multiple thing. Is it okay to reach out to Calica and say, I'm looking for a job, can you guys help me?
Let's let them answer that.
Job?
That's a good question. That's kind of a little bit of an old word, but let Amber go ahead.
I don't know that we call ourselves headhunters anymore. But certainly we're in the business of trying to help candidates find opportunities and obviously clients, identify the right candidates for their open roles. We certainly do have folks that call into us and just, even if we don't have, whether we have an open role for them or not, that just we start building relationships proactively with them to start keeping an eye out for particular positions that we might have available. Also, there's opportunity, and this is something I'm working with my sales team on, and trying to proactively present really strong candidates to opportunities that might not be open or posted yet, right? Like some of these jobs might not officially exist, but if we know we have a really solid candidate and we're familiar with this client's culture and maybe we think that there's opportunity for us to like just create an opportunity, that's something I want my sales team to be doing more as well.
Well, they're very proactive about getting to know you. Not all recruiters, headhunters are, but you trying to work and develop a relationship with people who are recruiters in companies or third-party recruiters is always important.
Yeah.
Jennifer, you want to add to that, Deb?
I'd like to add to the first question
Go.
about following up. I don't think you can follow up too much. Number one, as a candidate who's networking. So one example is I met someone in a community like this. He sends me an email probably every 2 months and tells me what has changed. And he finishes by saying, is there anything I can do to help you? Probably not. However, you never know. And so it is very effective in
He's top of mind now for you.
helping me
If
keep
there
it
is
top of
anything,
mind. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But if you're polite and you're not, there's no tone of anger in there, Suzanne, would you agree? Then
Right.
you can consistently follow up, not every day necessarily, but on a.
Yeah, and I think that's right, once a quarter,
Yeah,
something
but
like that, especially if you love the
He has
company.
a nice cadence.
Yeah.
Of what he's doing,
Right.
and he is continuing, even though you're not seeing each other in person. He is continuing to build that relationship.
It's a timing thing.
By doing that.
Right.
And if something should come up.
Yeah.
He's gonna be top of
Yeah.
mind.
And I will
Above
tell
and
you,
beyond.
I will share with you the ways that most of my candidates got into the companies was actually through a temporary job. And so a lot of times if you can register with like office team or account temps, that was part of Robert Half. A lot of times you can just be a temp, but then other people in the company in the neighboring departments see you. And they're like, hey, that guy shows up early every day. Then they'll start looking for your background. And sometimes you're like, well, I'm not going to work for such a lowly pay. Actually, it's an investment. So what you're seeing is if you even like that company. So I suggest you going in sometimes as a temporary, then you can see and meet line managers because you're already in their house. You're like, hey,
That's smart too. And also sometimes just the value of work, like Brian was talking about earlier.
Right.
Like sometimes you just got to do something. And
Yes.
if it's volunteering, great. If you can make some money, great. You could do consulting, but don't be afraid to do that, right, Brian?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, that there were days where selling vehicles didn't bring me great joy. But at the end of the day, I met a bunch of really good people. I had more fun there than I've had in any job.
Except for Calico.
No. I mean, it's a different beast, right?
He's listening from London.
I really like Calico too. But yeah, no, it's just I know somebody who's very close to me, my wife, and she is a licensed clinical social worker, and she has a tagline and she lives by it, and she will often say, "Find your joy." right? Regardless of what you're going through, there's always something where you can get some, get something good out of. And it's not always easy to find your joy, but it's there if you look hard enough, and you can take it and recast it into something positive in your life.
All right, we'll keep going with the panel can answer any question they want in any order they want. Stephanie, and then Ryan, you're after that.
I just would love to hear any advice. I think that as many of us know, looking for a job can be a full-time job. And then extended, obviously, with different, evening events and whatnot. What advice do you have? Because we obviously need to recharge and be our best selves. Any advice you have on time, time management or, where's the best investment of time?
Alton, once you go, then Deb, then Jennifer, if you'd like.
But, thank you. In terms of best investment in time, I think you've got to have a bit of a balance between, what you're focused on. And there's many opportunities in your job search spectrum. There's your target companies that you often hear about when you're networking. Hey, do you know, I'm interested in these companies. Do you know anybody there? So there's that element. And I think most of it should be around networking, not the push submit or hit submit.
Right.
But then there's like we've heard today, there's these volunteer organizations. I mean, I hadn't really thought of the temporary thing. It seemed kind of sneaky, to go the temporary route, temporary job to get it's brilliant though.
Again, isn't that dating before you get married?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's brilliant.
It's actually seeing if you like the company. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, and it kind of branches into internships or, if you're really young and in my company, actually, we just recently partnered with a local high school. I'm on their business advisory board. And as part of their IT academy, they have students, they have to do 100 hours of internship work with the company. So I've got a couple of high school interns working for me. And what a great way to learn and experience them and guide them and mentor them. And so it's great, not costing me anything, but they're getting real work in the process. And so it's like, gosh, I mean, if these guys do well, why wouldn't I consider them, for employment? And so there's that volunteering, and in doing so, these centers of influence that I think Paul had talked about. When you are, those are ways to expand your reach and to get to know companies and so forth. So I think that's really important. And then self-education, where you're learning new things, certificates, and all of those things. That's one of the ways that you can sort of divide up your time so you're not doing the same thing over and over and getting burnt out, but you're also reaching new people and just doing the networking that we've talked about so frequently.
That's awesome. Deb, do you want to add to that quickly?
Yeah, sure. One thing I would say, which is the parting message from me, know yourself, know your value. Remember the phrase from that Tom Cruise movie, Show Me the Money? When you are out in a job search mode, you are doing everything that you can do to show people your value. So the question becomes, do you know your value? You've got to do some background work, SWOT analysis. Somebody, I think it was Brian, somebody mentioned SWOT analysis at some point, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. You've got to take the time in the beginning, preferably with some help, because you get an outside perspective of who you are. What are your strengths and limitations? What strengths can you leverage? And how do you minimize the impact of any weaknesses, which many times you do by continued learning, et cetera. But you just got to know yourself. And to your question about time management, if you know your value, you will know what brings you joy, and you have to find the ways to introduce those activities into this full-time job search.
That's a good answer.
Also, you see the difference between that and I need a job. Will you help me find a job?
That's it.
Get in the heads of those employers. What's their pain points? What are their gain points? What are they looking to gain? Get in their head. It makes it easier on you. Because once they tell you what their goals and objectives are, you can say, interesting, you should mention them. I happened to do that very thing successfully in my last job. And I think I can perhaps do it for you too.
All right, Dana, hold on. Ryan's got a question.
Yeah, I was like, I have about 10 different jobs and within like different industries coming from construction, banking, IT, retail, and then going back to IT. I didn't know if that would be.
What's your question?
I didn't know if that would be a
Hindrance?
concern, yeah, hindering of.
Okay, Jennifer, from an HR point of view, and then quick hits, anyone else, and we'll start to wrap up.
I think what I would look for is how can you package the value you're bringing? It doesn't matter that you have all of these different industries, more about what can you offer our organization? So working on your elevator pitch and your interview responses on the value that you're bringing based on all of that wealth of experience.
And you don't have to.
Good, Amber, go
Yeah,
ahead.
that, and I would make sure that you have some sort of story to tell around why you made some of those transitions, because that's definitely gonna come up in a interview conversation. It doesn't necessarily matter to those folks that you made those transitions, but the why behind it might. So having some ready, story around what it is that
And
was
packing,
happening.
that's right.
And making sure not to speak negatively, like we said earlier, around any of those experiences, if there was anything negative involved with,
Just from a resume point of view, you do not have to include every single job you've ever had. You don't have to do this. You don't want to lie, but you can shape, and as you say, package is critical. Suzanne, do you want to add to that real quick?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you guys have not read the book, The Temperament God Gave You, that is a must for anyone looking for a job. So it is a workshop that we do for one of our couples, but what basically the temperament is, it's a difference than the Myers-Briggs. So some of you might be familiar with Myers-Briggs. The temperament God gave you helps you to know yourself, and it helps you to know what kind of manager manages you best. In just a nutshell, the temperament, there's 4 of them: choleric, phlegmatic, melancholy. Have you heard of these?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the reason this is critical is because when you read through the temperament God gave you, you will know what career will highlight your best temperament. It tells you basically job opportunities that you will be successful in based on how you react to situations. So that is a must-have for anyone looking for work.
Very good. If we're going to have to wrap up, however, if the panel, they're burning questions and people didn't get them asked, is it okay to reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Of course.
Would you, if it, or another way, if they had questions?
Yeah, contact me here at the cathedral. LinkedIn is not my.
Okay, contact you at the cathedral, Brian. How do they reach out to Calica and Amber?
Yeah.
Calendar, we're on LinkedIn. I've got
Website.
cards if anybody wants to.
You'll stick around, hand those out, and give us some, Jennifer.
LinkedIn.
Raleigh Metro, we have to earn.
I would say LinkedIn, and I've got my phone for anybody who wants to connect here before we leave today.
Yeah,
LinkedIn, yep, phone, you can connect direct.
So we have our apostles in the room, so stick around in the back if you don't mind.
Question?
Well,
Can I ask you a quick question? Because we are kind of.
yes, go, ask.
Are you going to provide a list of attendees or so for who is here today?
No?
You've got a sign-in sheet, and if I can read your writing, yes.
Yeah. If you register through LinkedIn, then the attendees are there, so it can make it really easy to connect and find out, oh, I remember this person.
And join the career network group on LinkedIn.
Yes.
I recently did, so.
Awesome.
Please connect to each other. That was a great thing.
Yep.
And I will say this, what you do in life echoes in eternity.
Yeah, but if anyone's.
Where's that from?
If anyone wants to volunteer, I have a lot of job openings.
Yeah, right.
Maximus, of course, from the original Gladiator. Okay, that's last comments for me. If you don't mind, we'd like the panel, everyone to take their seats, and they would like a nice big selfie from everybody.
You're only now. Try something funky. Thumbs up, or shake smile. That makes it fun. Go. Please Now, okay, a couple of comments.
Go ahead, Dana and Paul.
One is, there's another resource. Gerard Roble is on Zoom. Gerard is a disabled attorney in Florida. He has turned his situation into a passion to help job seekers all over the United States. Thank you, Gerard. And Gerard has created a website for this. And he said, please share his website and his phone number. Website is, and he's working with some other folks. They have tons of resources on there, all free. Franciscan Center Tampa.org.
Say it loud. Franciscan Center Tampa.org.
Let's get it on LinkedIn too, under the event, because everyone's gonna see that.
His phone number, because he will talk to you. He don't send him a resume, although he's not able to do that. But he will point you to different job search resources, companies, groups for people that are in different cities and so forth. And he's glad to do that. 516-709-2630. Thank you again, Gerard. He's connected to several.
On our website and on our LinkedIn page, he posts a tremendous amount of jobs on our career network page. So if you're part of the group on LinkedIn, for the Career Network Ministry, you'll see in the feed there just a plethora of opportunities that he's regularly posting.
Great, thank you, Alan.
I just want to quickly mention earlier, someone had asked about, okay, I don't have an interview soon. I looked it up, there's a website, it's not a good sounding website, but it's called Jails to Jobs.
Jails to Jobs.
And locally, by the way, if you need.
Well, no, if you go to this Jails to Jobs, it will, and enter your address, it will show you on a map.
That's awesome.
The resources that are available
great.
in this area.
Cool.
Look, there are several of them.
Okay. One thing you might want to know, I think it's a suit or a dress or an interview outfit, Brothers Cleaners will clean that for you. If you're in transition, you just tell them that.
Oh, cool.
Take advantage of these things. I mean, if you'd like to, do that. Brothers Cleaners, cool thing.
Here's the career book. I think most of you have gotten the career book, but if you haven't, we have extra copies. And it's the holiday Christmas season. If you want to take an extra copy of the career book and hand it out or package it up as a gift to someone that you think needs it, feel free to do that. Paul has printed this little request inside. We don't promote the book well enough. But if you like the book, go on Amazon and give us a 5-star review. By the way, people ask, people think, oh, you guys making money off the book. Well, that's a whole story for a different day, because we actually are in the black with the book because we invested our own personal money in it. We've never profited from it. We will not profit from it.
In the black or the red?
In the red.
Yeah, right.
So
Strike that from the record, folks. The hypocrisy.
we have $50 in the checking account, okay? So for that, but we invested in it for this purpose to make it available for everybody. And we have people that we provide free books like Helga has today. So we're grateful to you all for that. And it is a tremendous resource for you and for others, okay? So next meeting will be announced. It's in January on the second Thursday. I think that's the 9th or something like that. And I think it's at St. Michael.
Mary Mag.
Saint Mary Mag. And see, I'm lucky to have people that keep me straight. I don't have people be driving all in the city. What data said, what he said? And we normally open with a prayer. But Monsignor was here to give a blessing. Yeah. So we're going to close with a prayer and then stick around and meet each other.
So what I like to add is, get the book and your bookmarks back there. And I want you to get the bookmark because really it's our marching orders, that's careering apostles. And when you read this prayer back, it talks about how you need to help others. I mean, you're going to learn this even when you interview. It's how you make them feel. When you're meeting people are going to remember how you made them feel. And when you help other people, it rewards you in many ways. And this is why Dane and I have been doing this now. I've been doing it for like 20 years.
We've seen a lot of changes. But grab a bookmark. We have our Careering Apostle Prayer. And if you're from another area church, a Catholic church in our area, we're looking for careering apostles that will be a liaison so we can meet and alternate among churches. So we're in about 4 or 5. We're hoping to be permanently here. And once the careering apostles, you got to be a parish member in order to get a room and plug into their whole network. Hopefully one day at St. Bernadette, or maybe at St. Thomas More, St. Francis soon, I hope. Anyway, I'm going to close with this prayer. And the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Lord, I ask for your wisdom regarding my future, knowing that you give to everyone liberally and without reproach. I ask in faith without doubting, expecting you to give me direction in every area of my life, especially in helping me to understand my divine purpose. Help me to be passionate and of good courage as you lead me in the way I should go. Further, give me the strength to follow the pathway of faith, not the path of fear, and one of power, but one of power, love, and sound mind. Amen. Amen. All right.
Class adjourned.
Thank you.